Okay, making sure everything is all set here. Hello, everybody. This is your host, the Sea Monster. Welcome to Sea Monster Live, the third edition to the whole thing. Yeah, so far I got one viewer here. Whoever you are, thanks for coming in. We have officially started. All right. Nope, never mind. Just kind of getting everything all prepped and ready here. So, in case the title hasn't been isn't too clear, we're going to be talking about the Heisei era of Godzilla. Uh, Not just in my previous stream, I talked about Godzilla versus King Ghidorah on its own. But we're going to be talking about the Heisei era in general. And oh, hey, look, from the looks of things, it looks like just from the side of YouTube, my StreamYard icon, my DP, is actually showing up on all you fine kaiju tubers or YouTubers on your end. Cool, awesome. Third time's the charm. Yeah, because the first two streams that I did, it wasn't like that. It was just kind of like a blank avatar thing. But here we go. It looks pretty normal. Yeah, yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. Already off to a pretty good start, at least. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Heisei era, and I may have like a guest, maybe more, come on. So I'm gonna make sure to post my. I'm gonna post my StreamYard link in the chat for anybody who who wants to stop on. So come on and talk about Godzilla, Heisei Godzilla in particular, because it just kind of like overall just any general talking points to be made about the Heisei era. Um, like no film in particular, just overall. Because I actually have got finished um, watching the 7 Heisei films, over time, like a week or so. And I definitely have some thoughts to say about some, maybe some more than others. Like I said, I already did Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Spent like a good time talking about it, but it may come up again as far as discussion goes. But there are other Godzilla movies that maybe we could in the Heisei era that we could hash out our thoughts on. But yeah, for those who just to kind of give like an overall like sort of impression on what I think of the Heisei era. I definitely don't. Asha is here. Hey, rest too much. How you doing? Yeah, as far as the Heisei era goes, um, there are some entries in the Heisei era that I definitely like more than others. I definitely think Return to Godzilla is actually very good. Um, I also think Godzilla versus Destroyer, I would say, is a personal favorite of mine. But I don't know how like it's not necessarily like the best Godzilla movie objectively, but I definitely think it is like a very strong capper for the Heisei era. Good, that's good, sir. I'm doing pretty good. But basically for the most part, the Heisei era is just kind of a mix. Is overall pretty mixed in terms of quality. There's definitely good movies, definitely some very damn good movies in the Heisei era. Like I said, Return of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Destroyer, and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. That one's very good. Like I was surprised by how much I really liked that one, despite like the three Heisei films coming before that were just kind of like I wasn't really vibing too much in terms of how they were holding up quality wise. And but yeah, and that being said, you do have like I would even give Godzilla versus Biollante like a little bit of a not too much of a pass, but like just somewhat of a pass. Um, I kind of rated it as like 6 out of 10 in the last stream, but I would say it's probably closer. It's closer to more like a 6.5, like maybe like a. It could like I could definitely be convinced to give it a 7, but I don't know if I would give it much more than that. And as far as what I would rate the series, like Return of Godzilla is like an 8 or 8.5. Uh, Godzilla vs. Biollante 6.5. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is like 3. And considering how much of a mess the plot that in that movie really is, that might almost seem a bit generous. But I'll say 3. It's a 3 out of 10. Godzilla versus Mothra, or Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth. Oh god. Okay, so yeah, that one I'm kind of interested in like having a discussion with any potential guests over, because that one, the more I think about that one, the more almost kind of worse it gets in certain parts, especially when you take like the cosmos and their part of the story. Not so much the fact that the supernatural element of Mothra and Batra and the cosmos are introduced, like not necessarily, yeah, like not necessarily like there isn't much of an issue in terms of just them being there at all, but rather how the cosmos are sort of placed in the film. If anything, the monsters is probably like the most consistent thing in that film, despite some contrivances here and there. But yeah, there's definitely issues with that film. So I have no idea where I'm sitting. I think Godzilla Mothra: The Battle for Earth might be is like it's leaning into like a 5 in terms of plot, and it might even then go down to being a 4, but upon further discussion. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. I would say I want to give it an 8, but I will say there might be some. I could see some. I could see someone convince me to maybe dropping it down to 7.5 in terms of plot. I definitely think, yeah, like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 was very like I always knew that I was gonna like that one probably more than most of the Heisei films, but I didn't think I was gonna like it like a lot. I really enjoyed that movie. So yeah, and then you got Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, which yeah, I mean, that one was never really a favorite of mine, but yeah, it's definitely gone down in my estimation. The only reason why I would say that Space Godzilla isn't as bad as Godzilla versus King Ghidorah is mainly because, like, for one thing, it doesn't try and fail horrifically so at telling a time travel story. So there's like, if anything, the film is like safe to the point of being like, just kind of like, why make this? Almost, like it's kind of like a 4 out of 10. And that's probably at best. Like Space Godzilla is kind of cool, pretty much, but the pacing in that film was just kind of not very good. And there's like certain bits of the human story that honestly, could have been good, could have worked, but it just didn't quite do it, really all that much. And as far as Godzilla versus Destroya, that one I'm currently sitting at an 8. I could definitely acknowledge that the whole thing with the mini Destroyas like attacking the SWAT team, it's like it's like as blatant of like a reference or just kind of, or maybe not even a reference. It's just like almost to the point of like I won't call I wouldn't want to call it plagiarism, but it's like close. I mean, because when you think about it, you got like you literally have like some dudes with like miniguns using radar. That's just like Vasquez from Aliens. It's like you can't, if you've seen Aliens, you cannot miss the similarities pretty much, and it becomes kind of distracting. but but yeah, that film definitely is a very satisfying end to the Heisei era, which is an era that I would consider it as one that certainly has its ups and downs. I mean, granted, you could say that about any era of the Godzilla franchise, but I think a good number of people sort of put the Heisei era on just too much of on more of a pedestal than it kind of deserves. Um, at least if you ask me. But but Godzilla vs. Destroyer definitely ends it all on a pretty good note. The stuff with the monsters, with Godzilla dying, is very well done. Um, and Destroyer, man, just being like almost kind of like a perfect end to the whole thing, and just kind in the way that the film does call back to the original Gojira without being with reverence and with honesty and care, pretty much, and actually kind of advancing certain elements in that original film, like the use of the oxygen destroyer, and just kind of and like not maybe kind of exploring it just enough, like the consequences of it, to where it all just ties back in a pretty satisfying way. Um, but yeah, a little late, but hello, good sir. Okay, I just kind of waiting here. Uh, I just gonna announce it here on Twitter that the stream is going. It just kind of gave my overall impressions of like just kind of overall talking about the Heisei era, just about any film in the Heisei era, any element like or any character story or anything like that. We could even mention the whole thing with Giga and Rex and that Megalon short. Um, those are actually the only hate like I guess they're not technically Heisei, even though it is confirmed that Godzilla Jr. is the Godzilla that's fighting Giga Rex and Megalon in those shorts. Um, but and I haven't watched them, as of yet. But we can even kind of bring those up pretty much. But mainly just talk about the 7 Heisei films. So if anyone wants to bring anything to the discussion, we can. Maybe you guys can even give some kind of ranking, a personal ranking for you guys for the Heisei era. And up, we got a guest coming up. And, a drum roll, please. Okay, that's a terrible drum roll. I apologize. Let's bring him on. All right, at the stage. Here we go. Hello, good sir.
Hello.
How are you
How's my
doing?
mic?
It sounds all right. Probably pretty much pretty good. Sounds good. Up in my mind.
You're coming through loud and actually I might be hearing you on. Can you hear yourself through this? Because I've just realised I've got my speakers on the laptop.
No, I don't think so. I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, good. Never mind then.
Mm,
Sorry, I'm still mucking around with this a little bit. I'm not used to streaming.
that's okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just yeah, take So anyway,
Is better?
yeah,
Excellent.
yep,
Um, in answer to your question, I'm terrible at the minute.
okay.
I've I've been
Oh.
sick all week, and I've been off work, and I was determined, regardless, to be on this stream.
uh, thanks for for taking the time, my man.
I even used my days off work to watch the Heisei Era back to back.
Yeah. I've kind of been seeing those tweets about that. Um, yeah, that's especially about Godzilla vs. Mecha, Godzilla 2, and Ghidorah.
I was really surprised by that. Like really surprised.
But which one?
Um, Mechagodzilla 2, just
Yeah.
by there was echo cancellation. Oh, some automatically adjust mic volume. No, don't do that. Mic volume all the way up, 200%. Let's see how that works. If I'm too loud, let me know. Um, there was, I mean, spoilers for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, in case you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing here?
There's basically spoilers for all the Heisei films because we're just kind of talking about any of the Heisei films in general.
The So the bit where they take the psychic plant stuff, was it lichen? Whatever it was, the stuff on the egg, and they give it to the psychic children. They hear the song. They then record the song and play it, and that playing the song wakes Godzilla Junior up, or Baby, as they keep calling him in the film,
Yeah.
just to pull on your emotional like chords just that little bit more. They then later on, the children go to see Baby and say, "Oh, we want to sing him a song," and they sing him the same song. And I was watching the film, going, "Oh my god, why are they doing that? No, don't do that." And then it suddenly dawned on me that as far as the people in the film know, there is no connection between those two things because the people playing the song were in a different room when the baby hatched, and the woman who saw the baby hatch didn't know it was the song that hatched him. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, "Oh my god, this film is actually quite well written."
Yeah, that's the thing about Mechagodzilla 2. Like, I was really surprised by how well the writing in that film actually kind of holds up, especially when you compare it to like the some of the films that kind of came before it, like particularly the direct two predecessors of it, at least.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that the Heisei era does benefit from rose tinted goggles a lot.
Yeah. I never actually grew up with the Heisei era myself, pretty honestly. So I don't really have that kind of nostalgia for it. Like a lot of people, do, a lot of fans, but I've definitely watched them like a fair amount of times, pretty much.
Yeah, I was dad taping uh the Showa era films on Channel 4 at midnight for me on VHS, and then I was watching them over and over and over again as a child.
Yeah, we actually have another guest coming up, Thanatos. I think that's the name. So
Ooh,
we're bringing him on. Okay.
no
All
snap.
right.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yep.
Hello.
Can someone hear me? Or with my
Yeah, we can
mic?
hear you.
All right. First of all, my English it's not the best at the moment since it's not my first language. So forgive me if I sound quite bad.
Okay. That's
Never.
cool.
No, you're all right, Fang. Let's go for it.
All right. So, what were you guys talking about?
We're talking about the Heisei Era in general, but we're right now we're kind of bringing up talking about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2.
Oh, I get it. I haven't seen the Heisei films for quite a while, but they were okay. I really like Return of Godzilla and Biollante, to be honest. But I don't know about the 90s films. They have something that I really don't like.
I hear that a lot. You hear a lot of, oh, the Heisei area is good. It's like, oh, so when did you last watch it? Hmm, uh, you realise that people haven't really watched them a lot lately. They remember them from watching them at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even like before doing like a recent like marathon of the Heisei films, like I hadn't even like until the recent rewatch, I hadn't even seen any of them for like for like 5 years prior to recently. And some of them I definitely kind of remembered like pretty much liking better than I actually do right now, like Godzilla and Mothra, Bound for Earth, pretty much, which. We can get into that, but some like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, I actually actually still holds up pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. Mainly because of the storytelling and the writing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. It's kind of like the storytelling and the writing in Mechagodzilla 2 was almost sort of like it kind of seemed to be like picking up the slack from where like let's say Godzilla versus King Ghidorah just kind of like not to sound kind of insulting, but it almost sounded like it almost sounded like the writer. It almost seemed like with that film, the writers were just like kind of drooling all over the page with that one.
Oh,
Like,
I will.
yes. I agree.
No, you go.
And
I'll go. You go.
I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, and then I thought you were going to say something.
No, yes. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from '91 is has a lot of issues, if you ask me. Mainly,
that's putting
Ouch.
it mildly.
well, has a lot of issues regarding, well, the time travel aspects of the plot. And, well, like the rest of the Heisei films, I haven't watched that film like a long time ago, mainly because of some bad memories surrounding it, and maybe because there's there's something about that film that I don't really like. Like with the same happens with Against Mothra from '92, and well, that's it.
Hmm?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit. I'm sorry.
Oh well. If I can jump in, um, yeah, I think it's safe to say from what we've been talking about, Mechagodzilla 2 is surprisingly good and has some surprisingly good writing, which is something people don't talk about in monster films, and it's a
Yeah.
real shame.
Yes.
Um, Violante is often said as the best one. Um, English speakers would probably not say it's the best one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it is, to be honest.
Just the I wanted to burn my own ears off listening to the people at the beginning of the film.
Oh God, yeah, like the acting from like anyone who like spoke English in that film, like is like anyone who wasn't Japanese in that film, shockingly bad, like acting wise. Oh my God.
I think that's deliberate on that. There was Squid Game was the most recent one I can think of, where they had English or American actors with awful like lines. People were just ripping into them. It's like, what the hell was this? Google Translate script or something? But I looked back at it was a Jackie Chan film. Can't remember which one it was now. And in that film, Nathan Jones appears. If you don't know who he is, he used to be a wrestler. I think his biggest parts. I think he got killed by Brad Pitt at the beginning of Troy. Was one of his most famous ones, and he turns up in Mad Max Fury Road. He's a massive bloke. I think he's like 6'10", a former World's Strongest Man competition winner. And he's Australian. He's an English speaker, and in that film, he talks like an idiot. And what is going on here? And then you watch Biollante, and you've seen all these people speaking English who are clearly English. I think one guy was definitely English. There was an Australian in there. There was an American, and they all have awful English dialogue. And the only thing I can think is that someone said you have to talk like this for the Japanese audiences, for them, for those who kind of understand English to understand you.
Makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my theory, anyway.
Yeah. I guess that kind of lines up, perhaps.
Which is why you get some brilliant lines like, "Oh my God, she's really nice to look at, guys."
Oh man. Ooh. Yeah.
Like I said, nearly died.
Yeah.
And this is actually something else leads into another point I wanted to make. When watching Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, right at the start of the film, I was really confused because I thought I got the films in the wrong order, because it says, the order, for those who don't know, for some reason, is Return of Godzilla, Biollante, King Ghidorah, Mothra, Mechagodzilla 2. But at the beginning of Mechagodzilla 2, it says, in 1992, they made Mechagodzilla. And I went, sorry, what?
Yeah.
There is no way. And I checked the sub version. And the sub version says, in 1992, G-Force was founded, and they started working on an anti-Godzilla weapon.
What?
So from the original sub to the dub, they completely changed dialogue to make it sound idiotic.
Oh. Yeah. Like.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like if one thing if they just said like 92, they started working on Mechagodzilla because they would have salvaged the Mecha King Ghidorah remains from the ocean at least even around that time. But yeah, like saying like Mechagodzilla was built in 1992, it's just like what wait hold on, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like the same year that the UFO showed up, they made Mechagodzilla. No.
Nope.
Sense.
That's why I'm really worried about. I'm now interested to find the sub version of Godzilla vs King Ghidorah to see if there's any. I was going to say if there's any clarity in the plot.
Perhaps.
I think it might be on archive.org, but I'm not in touch. But even then,
Yeah,
some
that's
of the
where I get most of mine from.
Yeah. Even then, like it's not all like what you may find may not always be like the highest quality or like exactly what you'd be looking for. Oh, by the way, that one actor that you mentioned that you kind of talked about that was like 6'10", who was like in that Jackie Chan film. Apparently, his name is that guy's name is Nathan Jones. He's a WWE wrestler, and in Mad Max Fury Road, he plays like Immortan Joe's like older son, Rictus Erectus.
Oh my god, I didn't know that was his name.
Oh, it was him?
Yeah. The guy is all like, I had a brother, and he was perfect in every way.
In every way.
Oh my god.
And he rips the engine out of the lorry at the end. Whilst it's driving.
Yeah.
You watch that film.
Yeah. It's like I'm back from my phone dying. Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah, this guy kind of like came on. Prestige Maj, he first to show up or at least first to comment. So, so, so what would you guys say is the best Heisei Godzilla film? Um,
I will say that it will be Return of Godzilla, mainly because of its tone, and I would argue that that film has better characters than the rest of the Heisei series.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Return of Godzilla definitely has that actually has some pretty good stuff in there, like good characters, not just main ones, but heck, even like that the 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 homeless guy pretty much he kind of is probably a better
Oh
character.
yeah,
Yeah, I bet even that guy is like a better character than like most of the characters in the rest of the Heisei era.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Just him looking at Godzilla going, "You're not real. No, go away."
Whereas I'm like, yo, come on, man, leave me alone, okay? Let a guy eat.
Yeah, that guy just has some little minutes of screen time, yet he's really charismatic, and well, he's more memorable than any others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Fresh Team Match says a tie between Return of Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Biollante, and then followed by Destroya, which yeah, I would say like Return of Godzilla is very good. It's certainly up there, but I am sort of having a hard time trying to pick between that and Destroya at the moment because like revisiting Destroya it's like I don't know what you guys thought of it, but I pretty much think it was like a pretty. It definitely ended the Heisei era on a pretty high note, despite the peaks and valleys that were kind of going on with it.
Yeah,
It's hard to deny the emotional impact Destroyer had on just Godzilla franchise as a whole, because it's the only film the original Godzilla, they kill off Godzilla, and it's like, yeah, that's what usually happens at the end of these films. And as much as he was quite the iconic monster, possibly not at the time, maybe soon after. But even when he dies, it's like, well, there might be another one. It's his death's impact isn't as great as it could have been. Compare that to Destroyer, which by the time, I mean, how many years was that? 40 years? I think it was
Uh,
40 years.
40 years, yeah.
yeah, 40
40
years.
years of Godzilla, and then they kill him in quite a dramatic fashion. It's like, yeah, you can't really deny that's quite the impactful death.
Yeah, and even
Indeed.
then, it kind of sort of comes like even like that last shot of Junior being a mature Godzilla. It kind of comes back to full circle of Yamane's saying about how another Godzilla could appear, pretty much.
Oh yeah, even if you'd interpret it as just like as the spirit of Godzilla, especially when he goes into the Godzilla eclipse straight afterwards. It's
Oh
like you can
yeah,
interpret that as like metaphorical or thematic, or yeah, it's well done. It's hard to deny that. Everything leading up to that has a few issues, but otherwise,
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't even say like yeah, I could definitely see the Spirit of Godzilla thing, but I think it's definitely supposed to be Junior, kind of like fully matured because right before that we kind of see like a reaction shot of one of the human characters, one of the girls, pretty
oh
much
yes, we do, don't we? Yeah,
like, "Oh my God, what is that?" Without really saying that, of course, but just that look, it just kind of implies that there's something out there, and
it's
probably
not
another
it's not
Godzilla.
Mickey, it's the other one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Junior, like fully grown up.
No, I mean, there's not Mickey's the psychic woman, but it's not her. It's the other psychic woman,
Right, it's the
oh
other
yeah.
one.
the slightly psychotic one.
Yeah. And 1954 Godzilla's death was equal to GVDA in impact. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. it's debatable. I could at least
Looking
kind of
back on it, maybe
yeah.
Maybe.
with the post knowledge, as it were. But I think Destroyer at the time probably had a lot more impact because of everybody's knowledge and awareness of Godzilla at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that I would often tell people about the film and say, "This is the one where Godzilla dies," and they'd go, "What? He dies? Really?"
Yeah, yeah. It's like it was like so you guys haven't seen the '54 movie, huh? Because that happened as well. That's not
Yeah. Which is always something I find the MonsterVerse could have quite easily have because every film up until 2014, I think it was 20. Yeah, I think every film up until 2014, 1954 Goji was canon.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, I mean, you got like some of the Millennium films, kind of, sort of, kind
In
of like
something of an anthology?
the the some of the Millennium era films, kind of like cheese up a little bit of the. Well, I don't know if cheese up is the right word. Like they kind of like slightly retcon certain things in the 1954 film to suit a certain narrative, like the bones of Godzilla, not completely
Oh
disappearing,
yes,
so that they could have the skeleton for Kiryu. Other than that, every Godzilla movie just kind of, from within between 54 and 2014, they do tie back to 54, even if they are kind of like separate eras, like reboots and timelines and all that.
which is why I kind of liked. Oh, yeah, go on. Dinosaurs?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, about 1954 film being canon to every Godzilla film. Yes, up until Final Wars, it was canon to every Godzilla film.
Yeah, I don't know how what anyone thinks of like the Final Wars is kind of like it seems a bit confusing. They might, I mean, I think there was maybe like a mention of the King of the Monsters that threatened them in 1954, threatened humanity's existence since '54. But yeah, I don't know if that's like meant. I'm not even sure what to really make of that in terms of the continuity, perhaps. But
I'd have to watch it again.
Yeah, me
yeah.
too.
The problem with that is I'd have to watch it again.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Godzilla died in 1998.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
In GMK too.
To be
Well,
fair, that was after Destroyer.
Yeah. Yes.
well, GMK, he didn't die. Like his heart was still still
Beating.
kind of beating, disembodied but beating. So because that's like Godzilla in that film was like very supernatural in origin. So I wouldn't count that as death for him.
Yeah. It's kind of debatable too.
Yeah. Anywho, all right. So one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about was like, at least as far as this general discussion. So where does anybody rank as far as Godzilla and Mothra, the Battle for Earth, or Godzilla versus Mothra '92? Because that film, it's like kind of has some pretty very questionable writing in that one. Maybe not as questionable as King Ghidorah, but but I I'd like to hear what you guys think of that one, writing wise, or just anything in general.
I would like to say that the cosmos flying at the end of the film kind of destroys a lot of the plot.
Oh yes, absolutely. I was hinting at that, but yeah. I mean, if we want to just like go over like some of the details of that, in case anyone may be wondering what we may mean by that.
I
Perhaps.
completely forgot about that. Completely.
Me too.
It's just like the whole thing of oh no, they've been kidnapped. Oh no, stuck in this box. Oh no, they're in this room. And you're like, yeah, they're really kind of helpless. Their innocence is making them vulnerable to sinister human activities. And then it's like right at the end of the film, it's like, okay, bye. Superman off into the air. What the hell?
Yeah, yeah.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, the weird thing about this is like there's even a point in the film where Mothra is like coming up to that building where they're at, and they could just fly to her. They could just go to her I mean, Mothra's in her larva form, and yeah, you could say like she's certainly weaker in that state, but she certainly wasn't weak enough to not be able to endure like all the military's firepower. Because by the time she comes up to that Capitol building, you know, people are just like, "Oh my God, she's dying," and they're just like, "No, she's not dying. She's just reaching the end of her larval stage." So really, like Mothra was going to be. It seemed as though Mothra was going to be just fine, and they could just fly to her and just be like, "All right, we're just going to stick with you for the rest of the time."
He also almost died like multiple times from like when Mothra bumps into the building and the building starts collapsing on the people inside, and the treasure hunter has to sort of tackle their box out the way of a falling whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think Mothra would have just like came to like a much it kind of slowed down like much sooner than she actually ended up doing. It would be like, oh well, my friends are in there. Don't want to hurt them. 54's canonicity to everything hasn't really been a thing since Millennium. Right. The Cosmos flying is fine. They are fairies after all, and they never got captured in Battle for Earth. Yeah, they did. The one guy that was
Multiple times.
Exactly.
Anto, is the guy's name Anto? The guy who's working for the businessman? Like he took them.
I forgot.
So they
Yeah,
did.
there was the guy working for the business. He took them first. Then treasure hunter guy stole them from the businessman.
Yeah.
So they got kidnapped twice.
Yeah, so they did technically get captured in that film. So yeah, if them flying is perfectly fine, and then don't have it to where they can just get captured easily. Like unless they're supposed to be like, even if we were supposed to say like, oh well, as long as they're like in close proximity of Mothra, they could have easily just like either flown back to Mothra when she was in a larval form at the ocean when she's going back, or had the people just be like, hey, drop us back off to our island, since the plan that you guys had initially was to bring Mothra to the mainland, but now that she's going back, like we really don't need to be with you guys anymore. Damn, that does a fuck up, I guess. Yeah, it is.
There's a couple of ways you can look at it. Like if they are, but they can phase through walls. They can only fly. That was literally what I was about to talk about. If they are like magical, as in they don't make sense at all, they can do whatever they want, then potentially they were never in danger. They were never technically captured because they could just bugger off whenever they wanted to. At which point, it's like, so they are completely fine with people dying because Mothra is coming to get them. They're just completely fine with that. That's just a consequence.
They're just completely fine letting their guardian just like kill a bunch of people, intentionally or not, just to get back to them when they had so many instances where they had the means and they pretty much had all the reasons to prevent that from happening from the start. Like that would have been like an interesting subversion where it's just like, oh, at first it seemed like that we're going to be doing Mothra versus Godzilla again, but then they're just like, well, we're going right back. I mean, it'd be kind of funny almost a little bit if they just subverted that and just like we didn't follow through with the Cosmos getting kidnapped.
Actually, yeah, that would be great if they do the whole thing with the normal Mothra plot, i.e., the Cosmos have been captured and Mothra is going to save them. They did all of that with the Cosmos going, "Oh no, we've been captured! Isn't this a shame?" And then Godzilla comes along and they're spectating with everybody else. And when Godzilla starts winning, they're like, "Oh no!" And they fly off, and they're like, "Wait, hang on a minute, what?" And they start doing all sorts of stuff, and you suddenly realize they weren't invested in what the hell was going on. They didn't really care. But now that Mothra and Batra are in trouble, now they're invested. Now they're going to put some effort in, and now they're
Yeah.
putting out all the magical stuff.
Talking
Yeah.
about talking
They are-
about the I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh no, I was just reading a comment saying they are among the lower creatures that are just weird. IMO.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay.
Can I talk?
Yeah, you can.
All right. Talking about Godzilla vs. Mothra, I was searching about the film, and mainly because I haven't seen the film like King Ghidorah and Godzilla 2 in ages. The writer, it's none other than Kazuki Omori, which is also the writer and director of King Ghidorah and Biollante, and the writer of Destroyer, which makes me feel weird, mainly because this guy has such a it's such a weird quality-wise guy. Mainly because one day he writes and directs Biollante, but then the next year he directs King Dora or Mothra, and then he writes Destroyer. Like, dear God, just how can you be so inconsistent in quality?
Yeah, that's. It is always possible for a writer to kind of like sometimes they put out like good work, sometimes they put out bad work, but kind of like half and half. But yeah, with Katsuki Mori, it is kind of weird that we would get Godzilla versus Destroyer. Like when I was watching that film, when the credits showed Katsuki Mori as the screenwriter for that film, I was just like, what? like, that is shocking. And when that movie was over, it's just like, dang man, like what happened with in those other films that you wrote? Again, like I kind of think Godzilla versus Biollante is a bit overrated, but I don't think it's like bad. I don't know what.
It mostly makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, it mostly makes sense. But and then you get like those two in between that are just like that just have a lot of problems. Certainly, I mean, one is not as badly written as the other, but yeah, there's definitely some problems with Mothra.
There might be a comparison to be made with Adam Wingard, because Godzilla vs. Kong, I know we disagree on this, but I think Godzilla vs. Kong is a terrible film. There's obviously a lot of chopping up of the plot going on. Like there's various bits and pieces in the film where you can see leftover plot from another film. Like the map with all the Godzilla attack sticky notes on it, and you're like, Godzilla's attacked like half a dozen places. What? When did this happen? And that's clearly from another film that they've just it doesn't exist anymore. But on top of that, Adam Wingard, when he came into the project, he was told Mechagodzilla was going to be in it. So that wasn't his decision. He's like, yeah, Mechagodzilla's in this. Work out how he's going to be in it. And then there's other stuff like the Ghidra skulls being psychically connected. He was told that by I think he said his assistant, and he didn't question it. He just put that into the film.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
a
the thing.
combination. Yeah, it's just he's clearly going off of things that he's been told, and something you said on your last stream, Sea Monster, was that Biollante didn't do as well as hoped, so they decided to bring in King Ghidorah to try and up their numbers.
Yeah, which it
But
did.
maybe that's what they did with what's his face, the writer. Is like, okay, your Biollante one, nah, not great. Do one with King Ghidorah now, and then he had to sort of work that out, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the film did. I mean, it did turn out a profit. I mean, people. I mean, more people went and saw it than they did Biollante. Which I mean, so I mean, we can't really say that it didn't work out for them on that front. But in terms of writing, I think it was also the fact that I guess either Omori or somebody had the suggestion of what if we introduce time travel because it's going to be coming up in this will come up in my video for King Ghidorah as a point. But Back to the Future Part 2 came out around in Japan around that time as Biollante, and that's why that movie didn't do all that great. Because Back to the
I did
Future,
have that in mind when watching it, and when they're doing the backwards and forwards through time bit, and you just got the console with the dates on, I was like, this is ripped straight out of Back to the Future.
yeah, Back to the Future with some hints of Terminator here and there with the android
And
that
that,
can run.
absolutely, yeah.
M11, yes.
Yeah, that pretty much can run super duper fast, and able to catch up with a car. So it makes you wonder why did he even need to get into a car chase with them when he could have just caught up with them on foot.
I will offer an explanation for that. Having watched it again, you could possibly say that he was trying to be incognito about it by driving after them, but then when he crashed and half his skin came off, it's like, yeah, there's no hiding this now. Off and away.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, there was one thing I need to mention this before I forget. When they go back to World War II
yeah.
and M11 goes out into the war zone, and they say, "Isn't he going to get in trouble?" And they're like, "Don't worry, he'll be fine." Cut to M11 wearing a helmet.
Oh dear. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the helmet was supposed to be for him, doing some scanning or recording or stuff. But you're saying, he pretty much just put the helmet on for safety, even though he's an android and he doesn't give that much of a shit. Or
Yeah, there's other scenes later where he's wearing the helmet as well, and it's not for scanner. He's just wearing the helmet. Why are you wearing the helmet? Why?
yeah. I will always stand with GVKG being a Terminator clone with Back to the Future inspiration instead of vice versa. Um, I mean, I guess it's kind of a matter of the chicken and the egg sort of thing, which inspiration, or kind of took over before the other one, over the other one, pretty much, I suppose. But the point is there's hints of both because they wanted to do a time travel story because time travel was hot back around that era because movies about time travel like Back to the Future and T2 were big. So instead of doing the alien invasion story with typical alien invasion story with Ghidorah, which honestly would have been better because at least it would have been a lot more, way less convoluted and less of a mess. We wouldn't have to worry about time travel or someone messing up with time travel.
Yeah.
The plot is quite literally the Terminator plot.
Indeed.
In terms of, I guess if they're the same because of Godzilla destroying everything in the future, so they're trying to prevent that from happening. I guess I could see that. I guess that if that's what you're going for, fresh tea, then yeah, I mean I could kind of see that.
Talking about Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, I realized that it was released the same year as Terminator 2.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, 91. It came out around that time. And there definitely would have been marketing going on for T2, like leading, maybe even like a little before, 91. So they would have had to have been aware of it to put together some kind of plot for Godzilla versus King Ghidorah to involve time travel.
And yeah, talking about the Heisei Godzilla films, the thing that I really didn't like about those was how they looked, the visuals.
Yes, they were a very large upgrade from the Showa era.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I read.
Oh, yes. No, I meant that. Well, there's something about how they look that I really don't like.
Oh,
I don't know if it's
Oh.
the special effects by what's his name, the special effects director, oh, Kawakita. Yes. Um, Especially with starting with King Ghidorah from there up to Destroya, or you can argue that Rebirth of Mothra can fit into it well as well. So there's something about the special effects that did not age well. I don't know if it's the blue screen, green screen, wherever to use that in that time, or
I would
is it?
agree. There's some very there's bits and pieces like Batra's larval form is, as far as I can tell, completely static except for the tail.
Oh yes, even in Mothra, his flying form, her flying form, I'm sorry, is kind of really still, really quiet. Not quiet, still is the word. And the same goes and applies to King Ghidorah in the previous film.
Hmm.
I don't think I would have called Ghidra still. Oh, I
No.
remember it being quite Mecha King Ghidra, definitely. That was
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
that was down to practical issues. Apparently, the suit was too heavy to move.
Yeah.
So it was originally
Yeah.
going to be dancing around all over the place, but because of all the additional Watson doodles, it was just too heavy.
Yeah, they don't want, they wouldn't want like anybody to, potentially like get a heat stroke in that thing. I wouldn't really
Again,
blame them. And I would say, like, I guess for that one, I could see the point of that, being pretty stiff. But I guess the point of that scene is to make sure that Godzilla is like confined in one particular area to keep him from advancing further into Japan and causing more damage. So, I mean, like I think in the logistics of the plot, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't really have that much of an issue with it.
Yeah. And
I said plot wise, yeah, I think it's fine. It's just like the movement of it. It explains why it's a bit static. Doesn't really explain why the control module is on the chest piece.
wait, what?
The place
Yeah.
where the girl is sitting and controlling Mechagodzilla is on the chest piece. Like
Oh my
so
god.
much so that when they get the Godzilla grip going and Godzilla's hanging underneath Mechaghidorah, his face is right in front of her window.
I never saw that.
It's a little round bubble. They specifically show Godzilla breathing at the chest piece, and as it hits this white bubble, it then cuts inside to her going, oh. See, like, really.
She should have fucking died right there.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Like you'd think that she would have known that, especially considering that her control module thing it's like made out of the same metal material that the mothership was made out of, and Godzilla was able to destroy that pretty easily. You'd think that she would have like picked a better spot to be controlling Mecha Ghidorah.
Oh, absolutely. That also brings up the question of when they made Mechagodzilla 2, they made him out of. Oh, wait a second. Excuse me. They made him out of synthetic diamond that can reflect Godzilla's breath to the point where he's basically immune to Godzilla's breath. Why didn't the Futurans, whatever the names were, the people from the future, why didn't they have that tech?
Oh yes. Yeah, that's something I think that the Heisei series gets a lot of credit that it's deserved. I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. I will explain. The thing is that a lot of fans of the Godzilla Heisei series talk about how consistent and good the continuity is, when most of the time it isn't like that. And yeah, if you didn't
Biggest
notice,
the biggest discontinuity for me is the actors, because they keep reusing them.
yeah, maybe
Well, yeah.
I think literally the girlfriend, no, the sister in Return of Godzilla turns up in Biolante, the very next film, as the daughter of the scientist and then she dies right at the start. It's the same actress. I'm like, wait, is this supposed to be the same person?
wait, that is. Let me check.
If not, there's someone who looks very similar.
I assume the sin. Yeah. I assume
Holy
the sin.
shit, you're right.
Hmm.
It is her. It is Yasuka
Yeah.
Sawauchi.
Yeah.
The reason I remember is because she's so blank faced in Return of Godzilla, and her character is so balked that when she turned up in Biolante, I was like, oh my god, they brought her back. Oh, they killed her. That's all right.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
And Fresh Maj, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Timeline 3 humans. Oh, good lord. Do we need to discuss the timeline stuff?
Oh god, no.
Oh.
It's a mess. That's all I
Yeah,
can say. It's a mess.
yeah, like yeah, it's like all I can like. The thing about the timeline thing is like, so I'm not even sure if I should even like address this in my video of mine. I probably should, but like just kind of the fact that the way with Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, the way it just establishes the timeline, it is so just confusing. Like the best I could do is just kind of name off like what could potentially be contradictory about it, in terms of like, but like from like the fact that Ghidorah, if he was created in 1954, with the Dorats being placed instead of the dinosaur to get nuked, and become a monster. Like, shouldn't that timeline be like inaccessible
Or erased?
Yeah, yeah. It's like the Futurians showed up in the original timeline, as the original Heisei timeline. Just to be clear, so we aren't talking about the Showa era, which the beginning of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah pre-time travel is set in the same continuity as Biollante and Return to Godzilla, what have you. But then after they move the Godzillasaurus from Lagos to the Bering Sea, and then they put the Dorats there, how are the Futurians even able to like get Ghidorah from the new timeline to the timeline that they're like currently in? Because keep in mind, the teleportation devices is not the teleportation device that they use for that control ship. It moves things from place to place, but not from one timeline to another. It's only within the timeline that they're currently inhabiting. We see that with the Godzillasaurus, and we see that with the Futurian mothership when it gets teleported to Godzilla. So like there's nothing in the film to suggest that Ghidorah, that they would have been able to move Ghidorah after he's created in 1954, moved from the timeline that they just created to the timeline they started out at.
Oh, my head hurts. Oh, oh my god.
There's two ways of looking at this. One, an actual very recent example was the Loki show. I don't know if you've seen, well, EFAP's videos on it more than anything else, where they have.
I refuse to watch that show. It's Loki.
Yeah, don't buy Disney Plus.
I won't.
But on EFAP's one of these, they have Short Round's character is introduced to Loki and oh god, what's his name? Mr. Wow. Everybody probably knows him as
Owen
Wow.
Wilson.
That's him. They're introduced to him, and then Loki has a time flism and goes back in time to then meet Ouroboros back in time. And then there's two conversations going on at the quote unquote same time, but in different times, to the point where Owen Wilson says to Ouroboros, which is Short Round's character, can you make the doodad that we need to help Loki? And Short Round says, no, I can't. Cut to the past conversation, and Loki says, can you start making that device now so it's ready when we turn up later? And Short Round's like, yeah, sure. Cut back to the future, and Short Round says, no, I can't. Wait, no, I have. And then he picks it up out from underneath his desk.
The dad of the deformed kid in Wonder. Yeah, Owen Wilson. Yep. Lightning McQueen from Cars. The one guy, one of Vince Vaughn's co-Wedding Crasher and Wedding Crashers. Yeah,
was that? Oh, he wasn't motorboating, son of a bitch, was he? He was there. That was the other one.
My head.
The other one. The other way of thinking it is, it doesn't make sense. Don't even try.
That's
yeah.
me.
The Futurians just chilled in the present after the time travel. I'm kind of like going through the comments like a little bit out of order there. So, I mean, they could chip. Yeah, I mean that was kind of the thing. But the problem though is that they can't in the timeline where they're chilling in, it can't the timeline that they're chilling in is the one where they didn't move the dinosaur from Lagos Island. So the point is that point shouldn't even be accessible for unless they pretty much should have just brought the mothership with them in to 1944 to World War II, and then just did the mission thing there, and then just jump forward in time with the mothership to where. Well, I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out a way to try to make this work, and I can't. It's so busted.
It doesn't work.
It can't. It's not like this. It can't work.
Stop. They didn't need to stop where they stopped. They didn't need to go to 1992, introduce themselves, get all these people, and blah blah blah, then go back to 1945, 4, whenever it was. And do the thing. They could have just gone to the Second World War, did the thing, then gone back to the future. Hey, and then seen the results. And if the results weren't what they wanted, they could then muck around with it again, which is the biggest problem with time travel. Because if you can alter stuff and have no real consequences to you, then you can do that all the time and never have any problems.
Yeah. It's just a thing. Or just
you have the automatic win button.
Oh.
Yeah.
It
was 100% the one where he was displaced. Okay. Yeah, where the Godzilla source was displaced, I guess. Well, the thing is about that is that we got to keep in mind there's two Godzillas. One from you got the one from 1954, Gojira, which we can imply is the one from that was on Lagos Island that they moved. But but then you have the like the second Godzilla show up in Return of Godzilla, that we see going on. How would the Futurians have not known that? How would the Futurians have not known that there were two Godzillas? Especially if they have like all this history, all this access to this history. They
I
have
think
That is
like
unfortunately a big sticking point.
yeah,
I
like
think they say in the film, again, I watched them recently and I was paying attention, sort of, to a point. I think they say because the UFO hovers above where Godzilla is, and then the future people, actually say, yes, we've analyzed Godzilla's DNA and bone marrow and skin samples and whatever the hell else they said, and this is definitely the same creature.
yeah.
So at which
yeah.
point it's like, well, maybe that Godzilla was a different. Maybe the 54 Godzilla was another Godzilla, and the one they moved was the Return of Godzilla. No, they confirm it. That's the same one.
Yeah. Okay, so and then so I don't know if so. Apparently, there's a detail in Godzilla versus Destroya where I think they said something about that it was that the Godzilla that it was a second Godzilla, where they kind of confirmed that. But that could be.
Oh no,
That could be,
yeah. The Return of Godzilla is a different Godzilla. They confirm that. They say, yeah, this is a different one. But the Futurians scanned the Godzilla from Godzilla versus Biollante and confirmed it was the same creature as the dinosaur from the island. I probably should have made that more clear.
But then, wait a minute, that contradicts Biollante because the Godzilla from Return to Godzilla fell into that volcano. The volcano and in Biollante, that Godzilla emerges from that volcano. Like it's that same one. So that
Yes.
Oh dear.
oh boy.
Does that make sense?
So Godzilla versus King. Okay, so Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. They go on to say, all right, okay. So just so that we make sure, just so that we're very clear. Return to Godzilla falls in a volcano, and Godzilla vs. Biollante. He peers up from the volcano. Then you get to 1992. Futurians scan where the Godzilla is with the anti-nuclear bacteria in the water, just kind of chilling out. And they pretty much say that this is the Godzilla that is on Lagos Island. And oh god, okay.
It starts
I'm
getting
sorry.
complicated when you start looking at the details.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's like my GXK looking at that, and you realizing there are some huge problems with it.
Yeah.
Kong ran back to his home hundreds of miles with a frostbitten arm, and he was so badly injured, Diddy Kong had to help him walk. But he ran all the way back, and in an instant.
Yeah. That's pretty. Yeah.
Changing a little bit the topic of the discussion. What do you guys think of a Space Godzilla? The film, of course.
Would you go first?
Space Godzilla. I would say that one. That one's definitely like on the lower tier for sure. I wouldn't. I definitely kind of think it's pretty weak in terms of writing. not not the weakest in terms of writing in the Heisei era, that's for sure. But there's definitely quite a bit wrong with it.
I agree.
It's got
Yeah.
promise, but the execution ain't great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always thought that it was fun, to say the least.
Yeah, there's it kind of seems like one of those movies where it's like they kind of wanted to get to Godzilla versus Destroya pretty much at some point, but sooner. But I guess someone convinced them to make another movie like before doing that, before killing Godzilla, and so they just kind of had to like put something together. So we got Space Godzilla and some
Wasn't
of
he
the
supposed to be Super Godzilla before then?
yeah.
So it's
Okay.
basically filler, to say.
Yeah, kind of a little bit. And plus, here's the thing about I would say a point about in that film. You got like little Godzilla, basically the Minya of the Heisei era. Which, but I mean, by the way, I will say, little Godzilla or Godzilla Junior. Even in Space Godzilla, he looks better than Showa era Minya. I don't know if anyone wants to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
He looks cuter, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's for sure. So when little Godzilla gets like put inside the crystal prison by Space Godzilla, and so Space Godzilla leaves, I thought and obviously it was a while since I revisited Space Godzilla, but I've done the recent revisit. I thought what was going to happen was that Space Godzilla was going to take little Godzilla, and Godzilla was coming after him because he's got his son. But no, the crystal prison just stays on the island, and Godzilla is just walking off.
That's the bit that was like, I'm sorry, what? Is that Space Godzilla puts baby Godzilla in a prison? Space Godzilla flies off for reasons I just watched the film recently. I do not remember why he flies off. And
Yeah,
then Godzilla follows Space Godzilla. He doesn't even attempt to break open the crystal prison. He doesn't even go near it.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a deleted scene about little Godzilla getting out of prison at the end of the film, but it was, deleted. So there's that.
No, I think that is in the film. You do see him walking around, but it's the character issues of Godzilla, the protective father, sees his son put in a crystal prison by a freaky version of himself, and instead of going to help his son and get his son out of the crystal prison, he just leaves him there. Doesn't even try.
Yeah.
About the parent.
Yeah, you think he would have like attempted to do that? I think honestly, the fact that, honestly, by the end of versus Space Godzilla, when they showed little Godzilla just like roaming around on, on the island, pretty much. Do they call it Tiny Island, or does it really like the English versions of the Heisei era? They just call it either Tiny Island or Baz Island. It's the island that Godzilla and his son live on. When they show him just like roaming around, just like being free and happy and all that, I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot that little Godzilla was in this movie, and that he was held. Apparently, he was held hostage by Space Godzilla, who just left him there in a prison. That's right.
He's also bigger in that film than he is in Destroyer.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Again, I watched Destroyer today, actually. And yeah, you got little Godzilla is portrayed as a puppet because he's so small compared to Daddy Godzilla. But then you're watching him in Space Godzilla, and it's clearly a child or something in a suit. Is like, yeah, he looks like chunky and bulky, like he's a young version of Godzilla. But in Destroyer, it's like, oh no, he's definitely a Godzillasaurus. Look, he's really small compared to Godzilla.
Huh? Yeah. And so yeah, that checks out. Just going off of memory here. Yeah, it definitely checks out there.
Well, oh,
Yeah,
that's it.
and it's definitely disappointing. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, guys, I get this time. It's a little late in my time zone. Time zone, I guess it's called in English. Yes, time zone. So this is goodbye for now.
Okay.
Nice talking to
Anything you
you.
want
Oh yes, Sea Monster. I really like your content. So goes to Sea Animals. I really like both your videos. Are fantastic. Your channels. Big fan of both. So
Oh, thank you very much.
it's been quite an honor to be here, and that's all.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you.
So see you later.
See ya.
Goodbye.
And now there was two.
The Sea Kings rule again. Mwah!
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's kind of disappointing that versus Space Godzilla was made on the 40th anniversary of the Big G, pretty much. Like
The
Destroyer
final
would have
wars was
been.
made on the 50th.
Well, that's okay. We at least 2014 was made on the 60th.
Oh yeah.
At
Unfortunately,
least we got
GXK was released on the 70th.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Kind of, yeah, it does kind of make you. I always kind of wondered, like, how come that the opening? It made me wonder, like, when I was seeing -1, like, why they had said 70 years of Godzilla, pretty much. It's like, well, I don't know. When that movie came out in 2023, which it's a little weird, but yeah,
Maybe they wanted it to release in 20 because it came out in December, didn't it?
yeah,
Maybe they
December
wanted it to release
2023.
later.
Yeah, it came out December 2023. I think they probably were thinking of releasing it in 2024, maybe, but I don't know. I haven't really heard anything that was confirmed. Final Wars
To
on
be
the
fair,
40th.
close enough. Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Well, I mean, we'll count it as the 70th anniversary one, even though it's the 69th, which
Nice.
yeah,
I'm trying to think
69.
if there's...
Okay, you go ahead.
I'm a mature adult. One of the things I wanted to talk about was Return of Godzilla, because it's treated as a very serious film, but it does have a few drawbacks. It does have the Heisei staple of here is Godzilla, he's attacking again. Here is our new special weapon, and that happens in every single film. I think it's like here's the oh god, what the hell was its name? I literally just watched Destroyer where they had the third version of it.
The
Super X.
Super X3. Yeah, you had Super X, the OG in Return of Godzilla. Then there was the Super X2 in Violante, and then you just
Then
yeah, then
Mecha Ghidorah. Then
yeah, Mecha Ghidorah.
what did they have in? Did they have anything in Mothra?
I'm trying to recall. I don't think so. I don't. I don't. I don't think they do. Maybe. Not sure. I don't think they
Ooh,
did.
I literally just watched that and I can't remember. That's bad.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's.
In which case,
Yeah,
that's an outlier because then obviously Mechagodzilla 2,
you had
Space
Mecha
Godzilla
Godzilla.
has
You had yeah,
the
Mogera.
Meccano mole. Mogera, yeah, Meccano mole. And then
Yeah.
Destroyer is the Super X again.
Well, it's Super X3, which I honestly think
Again.
they probably. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the Super X again, but this time it's like it
It's
looks.
actually effective.
Yeah, it's actually effective. It's like maybe you guys could have started with that.
Yeah, they
Or at
actually
least,
they quote unquote kill Godzilla within like 5 seconds of fighting him. It's really worrying.
yeah,
If it hadn't been for him melting down, they would have won straight away.
yeah. Love how they just refused to acknowledge the idea of the Super X until the last film. Yeah, you'd think they would have just like kept developing that over the course of the films. Like, and yeah, like that's. I mean, the Super X3 is pretty badass. I gotta say, it's it's like fast. It can shoot. It can basically freeze and stuff monsters pretty much. Like freezing them. That's like a very useful weapon, not just for a Godzilla that's about to blow up the planet from a nuclear meltdown. Um, but just anything in general.
Especially with the speed at which they freeze him and how hot he's
Yeah,
supposed to be.
yeah, like the fact that they were able to buy themselves some time to like delay them, like they treated it as like a big issue of like, oh no, he's coming out, he's thawing, like very like soon after. But it's like, well, you still bought yourself some time, so it's
The weirdly, it's something that everybody addresses in King Ghidorah because obviously you have to address it. But because of the Hirizanu special weapon gimmick in most of the Heisei era, the the submarine. That was it. The submarine in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah is the special weapon. They go, we need something to irradiate the Godzillasaurus. Don't worry, we have a secret nuclear submarine that's
right.
privately owned and stored somewhere secret. It's definitely not massively internationally illegal.
It's high. It's like, and they hid it in like like somewhere within another country's territory, like Shindo. Like depending on when this sub was built and when they just like had it out there, how long it's been out there, it could have been potentially like years before '92. Shindo could have potentially have started World War III just by doing that, considering that Cold War would have been still going on at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Think about Return of Godzilla. That sub goes down and World War III is about to be declared.
Yeah.
So if someone accidentally saw a nuclear submarine sitting somewhere, they would have raised the alarm in World War III.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But it's the other issue of Japan wasn't allowed they have a self defense force. That's what they're allowed. It is actually I brought this up in Fractured Diamond. They don't have a lot of the tech that most other countries do because they're not allowed. They're only allowed a self defense force, so they don't have a lot of stuff, i.e., as in Shin Godzilla, they don't have drones, they don't have long range ballistic missiles, which is what the Americans use. They don't have that stuff. So for them to have a nuclear submarine with ballistic nuclear missiles on it, that's a problem.
Absolutely, yeah. And I pretty much know that we're not the first ones to say this because the Omniviewer like addressed it in his Atomic Roast videos for Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but this is like still a very valid point.
Oh yeah, this is the sort of thing you bring up every single time. But because it's been brought up, you're now thinking, well, hang on, what about the Super X? Isn't that it's described as a flying fortress? And they go on
Yeah.
about the fact that it's heat resistant armor and the mirror on the second one and the freezing stuff on the third. But on I think the first and second one, in both cases they break down for whatever reason. They go, "Oh no, our special stuff is broken. Let's use conventional weapons." And then they start unloading their, I think it was miniguns. I think it's Gatling guns, missiles, and what look like lasers. And you're like, I'm sorry, what?
I do think the Super X2 was powerful. It just failed because the enemy, Godzilla, has the most cracked durability ever. Well, I mean,
It's an interesting. No, you go.
oh, I'm sorry. You go right ahead.
I was going to say, most of the Heisei era, Godzilla's on his back. He's like
Yeah.
almost every fight he gets involved in, he gets knocked on his back. Like Mechagodzilla 2, he gets knocked flat on his back straight away. And it's
Yeah.
only because of the feedback that just went wrong for them is why he survived the fight.
Yeah.
Same with King Ghidorah. He nearly lost the fight twice because Ghidorah was being controlled and then Ghidorah nearly choked him out. It's like every time he gets into a fight, he seems to lose, and until like the last minute, he pulls something out.
Yeah. Yeah. Or something happens that's like kind of like very convenient, like the mothership getting sabotaged, and Ghidorah kind of is, they lose control of Ghidorah pretty much. Let's just
Oh
say.
God, I forgot to mention that supercomputer. More evidence from what was the girl's name from the future?
Emmy.
Emmy. More evidence that she's definitely inbred stupid. They must be. Her great great granddad or whatever was looking at her going, "Oh yeah, I'd hit that absolutely." She's going,
Yes.
I only like it because you're here. He's like, that family is absolutely inbred, and it's made clearer by the fact that she is terminally stupid. I mean, there's all the bits you brought up before, and what everybody has brought up before, but then she brings up that supercomputer and says they're going to give this to Japan. And when I heard that, I was like, what do you mean they're going to give it to Japan? They're destroying Japan. Why would they give them a highly advanced supercomputer? And my logic for making that make sense is that that's what they told her at the start of the trip. Like, yeah, we're just going back to help them. And yes, we've got this supercomputer. We're definitely going to give them this supercomputer. It's definitely going to be a thing. And then after them, they double crossed her and betrayed her. She still thinks they're going to give that computer to them, and she's just that stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. That there's a lot to unpack with that character, and yeah, just the fact that she just let me just like even and also the fact that you could say that family is also pretty inbred stupid because like I've kind of been thinking like that Terasawa was like probably one of the only characters in the film who's like mildly okay pretty much because like it's but yeah as I think about it it's like yeah he probably is a little bit dumb because like the fact that she just shows up at his place and he seems like he's not like remotely like just going like yo you're one of the yo what the hell girl like did you know about anything like he should have been more hostile towards her about the whole thing with Ghidorah pretty much but I guess he was too upset about his book not doing all that well critically or financially to let that bother him even though he was
Also,
part
the
of the
horn.
time travel mission.
I mean, also the horn. Let's not forget that. Um, the inbred horn.
Oh
But
yes.
you just reminded me of another inbred stupidity. She says to him because he's talking about rewriting his book, and she says, "You can't do that. That's against the rules of time travel." Jesus fuck what? And then later on, they're talking about one company or another. I can't remember. They mention a company name, and she says out loud that company grows steadily right up until the 23rd, 4th century, whenever the hell they're from. I was just like, sorry, you just told somebody from the past, like really, like helpful, like information with regards to making money. So why the hell is it not all right for him to change the name of a book, but completely fine for you to give out financial info? That's literally the plot of Back to the Future 2.
Oh my god. Oh god. Oh okay. Is it okay for me to like use this as like a clip for like my video? Because that is an excellent point. It's like, oh, so she's just a fucking hypocrite.
I've actually got the videos on my gaming computer right now. I'm gonna see if I can find it. There she is talking to him.
Yeah.
Here he is. Right, here he is talking to. I'll be back in a second.
Traveling in time.
Yep, there you go. He says maybe if I changed it to traveling in time, and she hovers down the stairs. I don't know how she got in the house. And then she says that would be against the rules.
Yeah.
I'm now
Yeah.
going to
She
try and
said,
find. Oh, I found it. That was surprisingly. I don't know how I managed that.
Create a new Godzilla.
Teo is mammoth. That company grows steadily to the 23rd century.
Holy, yeah. I think they're
Oh.
talking about
We don't have any proof yet.
what company is that?
Still, this is something I'd like to share with those fools in the higher echelons of government and business who want to create a new Godzilla.
Teo is mammoth. That company grows steadily right up to the 23rd century.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. So she gives away like quite significant financial information.
God. Oh no. Oh God. Yeah, God. This is nuts. I'm like Marlowe. This is nuts. This is nuts, guys.
This is Godzilla. This is another film where the more you look into, the more you dig, the more you find, the worse it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that in. Wow. Holy shit. Terusawa isn't dumb. He's just crazy. It could be a little, yeah, probably a little, maybe a little bit there for sure. You can kind of see that. Anyways, they might not have taken everything from Back to the Future, but they 100% took the incest.
Oh God! Don't make me do that. I'm coughing.
Oh God. Okay, so all right, so this comment from earlier. It says Godzilla vs. Biollante Goji is the same creature as the Godzillasaurus, but 84 isn't. It's a healing mutation. So, well, with that's
I need to write a flow chart for Godzilla. Do you remember all the videos people made about oh God, Endgame, Avengers Endgame? People tried to make flow charts for all the time traveling. You need to do that for Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
yeah, yeah, the flow. Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of all this, like just with notes overall. But I probably there's like so much to just unpack here. Yeah.
It's one of those films where you need to play it and then take notes every time someone says something stupid. You need a whole notebook for it, but yeah.
Yeah. So overall, what's everyone's stance on the Heisei era? Good, decent, or everything in between? It's definitely. It's very. Yeah, I'll go. It certainly has its high points. It has its low points. You could say that. I mean, you could say that about every Godzilla era, pretty much. But there's definitely a sense. But this one is definitely very unique. In that the Heisei era is definitely kind of unique because like there is like it's like very up and down pretty much because like. But what I had seen of like the other eras, like the Showa era, because I haven't because I'm meaning to revisit the Millennium era pretty soon. But with the Showa era, at least, it's kind of like there is like some dips here and there, pretty much, but but there are still, but it's kind of like there's like a little bit of consistency in quality for the Showa. Like maybe like what that may say about those individual movies. But the Heisei era is very like it starts out very strong and it ends up. That's it's not even that unique because like it starts out strong and it ends strong and everything else in between is kind of like peaks and valleys, kind of like the Showa era. Because with Showa you had 54 that was like it's 54, and then it ends with Terror Mechagodzilla, which is a pretty strong note.
Yeah, that's an attempt to try and save the series.
Yeah, I mean, it was like too little, too late, but it was definitely like you could certainly take that as like a good end, pretty much, whether it was intended to be so or not. Like, let's just say there isn't really a sense in Terror Mechagodzilla where there's like any dangling threads that need to be wrapped up that never will because the series ended before they could wrap them up. But yeah. And you got Destroyer, which again ends the series on a high note. The era on a high note.
Oh yes, and they definitely seem to try and like connect back to it as well, like through the series as well. Like they talk about going back to the Bering Sea where Godzilla and Junior came from, the whole Godzilla melting down, which is more like the Godzilla uh, versus King Ghidorah sort of plot line where Godzilla destroys Japan with melting down, and they seem to try and like tie all the threads together to then like tie it all off.
Yeah, they try to tie them all up. Maybe even sort of salvage some stuff here and there, like some problems that other films may have started or may have caused. Because like as broken as the logistics are for Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, like it makes sense in Mechagodzilla 2 for them to use Futurian technology to make Mechagodzilla because of how effective it was.
Oh, that is something I'll definitely say about the Heisei era, especially in comparison to the more recent GVK and GXK. The Heisei era took what came before and built on it. They took Godzilla sleeping in the sea to try and fight off the bacteria, and then that's where they find him in the film. They take Mecha King Ghidorah and use the corpse of that to make Mecha Godzilla, and on and so forth. They build on what they have, especially with Destroyer when they go back to 54, and then also with the Super X and everything else that's been going on. Is they do what a series of films should do. They build on what came before. Cough Godzilla versus Kong. Cough Godzilla X Kong.
Yep, yeah, there's that. Yeah, those would definitely be up for. Those would definitely be like for discussion for another time for sure. As far as like how that looks like, but yeah, like yeah, like the Heisei era definitely does like a lot more tying back to stuff than what you would see in the, I guess you could say the Showa era, because like I mean the Showa era does have some stuff that ties back to other things, but it's like not. It doesn't seem like it's like an overarching saga. Almost, it's like you can almost like aside from the Mechagodzilla movies, those are like the closest ones, and well, those and Godzilla 54 and Raids Again, and King Kong versus Godzilla, pretty much because you had like the Oxygen Destroyer happen, Raids Again directly references 54 with a literal clip show of 54 almost, and then Godzilla gets frozen and gets put on ice literally, and King Kong versus Godzilla we find him breaking out of the ice. So, and then the rest.
It's a loose continuity. It's like you don't have to see the previous films to watch individual films. but you know, it helps.
Do you mean Terra Godzilla had no threads, or that the era had no threads? No, I said like there were no like Terra Godzilla ends at a place where there's no loose threads dangling when the era is over. That's what I meant. I will say, when it comes to Heisei Godzilla, while I enjoy him, I wish he wasn't as trigger happy when it comes to wanting to destroy Japan. It does get ridiculous over the course of the films to me. Hmm. What do you say about that? Because
I was just about to go, yeah, and then I went, oh, hold on a minute. Because in Return of Godzilla, he attacks the nuclear plant. He does attack Tokyo with one of the. I want to make a one monstrous moment out of this. When he arrives at Tokyo, and you have all the army shooting at him from the dock, and then he just sweeps the dock.
yeah, like
It's a really. I want to make that into a one monstrous moment because that is such a. Again, with some of the stuff in the film, there's like technological issues with the special effects and whatnot. Some of the acting ain't marvelous. The sister is a plank of wood. There's lots of little bits and pieces, and then suddenly that scene comes out of nowhere, and it's genuinely shockingly horrific. And it's like, wow, they clearly had some purpose behind this.
yeah, that's I probably have less of those issues with that movie than probably you do. Although I mean, some of the technical issues I would say are kind of there very much, um, especially with that sea lice just kind of looking very stiff.
Oh god, yes.
Yeah, that's probably the worst. That's probably the worst effect in that movie. Possibly the whole era.
Exceeded their grasp, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the other ones that I remember being notable was when Godzilla, and again that happens, and again this is why it shocked me so much. When he arrives at Tokyo, he rises out of the sea, and they've clearly got him on like some sort of apparatus that just springs him upright from a horizontal position. But when they do that, and it's really obvious in the film, when he sprints up to the upright position, he just is like boing, and his jaw wobbles. And it's like it's really took me out of the film scene. It's like, oh god damn it! And then the scene happened, and I was like, oh god damn it!
Yeah, there's like Godzilla kind of has like this upper lip thing that just kind of it's like maybe a bit much, I guess, but it's not.
Yeah, there's also the thing of they do the thing with having the head, like a mechanical headpiece, as a separate thing from the suit. So they have the suit and the headpiece, and they're throughout the series, the Heisei era, they never quite match. There's always a slight difference between the close-up headshot and the suit.
Yeah.
Which isn't a massive problem, but it is noticeable.
Yeah, it's a noticeable technical issue. It doesn't really break or even hurt the movie all that much.
But this is the thing. It's like you watch these films back. It's like watching Ray Harryhausen films. You're watching these films, going, okay, yeah, you can clearly see where the like the edge of the model area is, and then where it melds into the stage area, and where the actors are standing and where the model is standing. You can clearly see that. You can clearly tell that stop motion and whatnot. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's a technical thing, a special effects limitation of the time. You just have to sort of accept that and watch the film for what it is. And even then, there's still some brilliant stuff in there, like the Guanji noose scene. I don't know if you the bit where there's two cowboys have lassoed Guanji, and it's just the scene of the. Sorry.
I actually haven't seen Guanji, but
No. Oh, you
no,
should. It's brilliant. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you this now, and then when it happens, you can have a look at it. Two cowboys, live action cowboys on horses, they've thrown their lassos over Guanji, and they're either side of the screen, and Guanji's in the middle of the screen, and Guanji is a stop motion model, and they are real people on horses connected by ropes.
Ah,
And it's really hard to tell where one stops and the other begins.
yeah. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, when you watch it, you can look out for that and marvel at Ray Harryhausen's skills. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like technical issues like that is the sort of thing you look back on and oh well, yeah, that's in there. You kind of notice it, but then you can also ignore it and look at the writing, for instance, and the scenes that they do well and what they're trying to do, and that's where you have to try and that's where the Heisei era, as much as it's got a lot of problems with special effects, what Destroyer has a lot of very weird effects that don't really work quite well. And again, I think that's the reach exceeding the grasp bit. But you can see what they were trying to do.
Hmm. Um, I think I might have a little bit of an idea, like of what you're talking about, but there's like I think there's only like a couple bits in Destroyer that I probably could see where you're coming from. Like are you pretty much like referring to anything from like that sequence with the SWAT team? Because
That's not so bad, I don't think. The bit I'm thinking of is when he turns into the flying form and he's just flying over the city. Actually, that's something to mention. I'll mention that in a second. When he's flying over the city, there's clearly a feather-edged JPEG of his shadow that they just drag across the screen of people running through the streets.
hmm. Huh. I actually didn't notice that. It kind of seemed like a blink because I think it may have gone by like pretty fast.
Well, this is the thing. I was watching these films, and I've again got them all on, got all the files. I'm looking through them, going, a lot of these are the same length. Like most of them are 1 hour and 44 minutes. How the hell have they
Yeah.
got so many films to be 1 hour and 44 minutes?
Hmm.
With Destroyer, like the scene where he's flying around, that goes on and on. It feels like 5 minutes of just him flying around the city going, "Arr!" and people going, oh my god. That just seems to go on and on. There's no purpose to it other than to waste time. But then you got Godzilla. Then you got Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, and in my memory, the fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah happens at about the halfway mark, and
Yeah.
then um, Mecha King Ghidorah comes in like quarter mark or something like that. No, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah happens 20 minutes from the end of the film.
Ha. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And Mecha
Kind
King Ghidorah comes in 10 minutes from the end of the film.
of. Yeah. I will also give credit to the Heisei era for creating new antagonists that became as big as the classics as Gigan and Ghidorah, Destroyer, Biollante, and even Space Godzilla, as ridiculous as he is still iconic. Well, yeah, Destroyer, I definitely would agree is iconic for sure. Space Godzilla, kinda, as well. I'm not sure how many people know about Biollante, or I mean, well, who isn't like a diehard Godzilla fan.
I suppose that is a point, yeah, because like Space Gods and Destroyer, a lot of like fans will know, like casual fans will know about Destroyer and Space Godzilla, which is weird because they're like the worst ones. Well, no, Destroyer is good. Space Godzilla is usually like memed on because it's a bad film. It's
Yeah,
interesting that they have stood the test of time to the point that you're watching Godzilla X Con and people are saying, "Oh, maybe we could have Space Godzilla in there now, and you can have Destroyer in there." And even I have talked about a possible storyline where you could have Destroyer turn up, and thanks to not only Godzilla versus Kong, but Godzilla X Kong, there is plenty of opportunity to put Space Godzilla in. It's really amazingly easy to fit him in now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there could be like perhaps like it's possible that. Oh, I'm kind of echoing on your end. Actually, started to notice.
Oh, can you still hear yourself now?
So, all right. So I'm reading the Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Because I heard me echoing on your end. But we're good. But it's good. Yeah, I could kind of perhaps there's potential to do like a Biolante or a Destroyer in the MonsterVerse. It's just a matter of like how are they going to incorporate them. If they manage to like get the rights to them. Which I mean, I know that it's like considering how well GXK is doing financially. I mean, so it's possible that we could start seeing, some more, recognizable kaiju. Let's just hope they're done well. You know.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? It's having these characters and then finding something to do, like Mecha Godzilla. That was so badly shoehorned into GVK. I really did. Do you know what they should have had? Mechanicon. They should have had Mechanicon in there. That would have made so much more sense. I've come up again. I want at some point when I have time. I never have time, but I'd love to. I suppose I could just put it into a ramble. That would be easier. Actually, just talk about my revision of Godzilla versus Kong, and I've got two versions. One where Skull Island isn't swamped by the storm, and they train Kong to be their pet titan by having like constructions of basically a Mechagodzilla constructions, various types, like one that moves, one that has arms, and one that has the laser on the head. And they're basically training Kong to fight Godzilla with the dummy Mechagodzilla. But at the end of the film, it's revealed, oh no, this is actually us working out how to make our Mechagodzilla, and now we have, and here he is. Woo-ha-ha-ha. And then the alternative is doing that, but they're just watching how Kong moves and whatnot, so they can make their own Kong.
Yeah, that could work. I think the highlight of the Heisei era Godzilla is him wanting to belong. He confronts Biollante because of her similarity to him. He finds happiness with Junior and is saddened by his death. He's a character. I could kind of see that. Yeah.
That was a point in Mechagodzilla 2 where Junior is accidentally drawing Godzilla to him, so they take him underground into like a bunker that's sealed or whatnot. And when Godzilla gets there, he loses like contact with him. And then, because in fact, Godzilla literally just he did a Mothra essentially. He beelined to where Junior was to try and get him. And then when he couldn't find him, he turned around, and there's just this. Even the film is playing sad music as Godzilla is turning around and just sort of walking away with like hunched shoulder. He might as well have had hunched shoulders and a dropped head, because it was such a meant to be a sad scene, and it felt sad. He like, oh, Godzilla thought he found like a fellow Godzilla, and then they disappeared, and now he's all sad.
Yeah. Mechagodzilla 2 is really good, by the way, people. Just want to make that clear.
It's surprisingly good.
Yeah, surprisingly good. I'm wondering if actually no, I don't think Amori wrote it pretty much. So let me check actually. But
I'll be back in a second. I'm getting a drink.
Okay. Dan was streaming early, but I guess makes sense if Animus is in here. Yeah, Zim. So if you, we're here early. If you want to hop on, I'll pretty much send you the link to the stream of Discord if you want. Actually, the link to the stream is in chat. So, come on. I just got to follow up on these chats here. Of course, it's good. It was meant to be the finale. Yeah, apparently, yeah, they actually did obviously, I heard that information from Cinemassacre's Monster Madness, like first Godzilla-thon, where they said that Mechagodzilla 2 was originally going to be the end, because they were going to have Godzilla die at the end of that one, but then they just changed their mind. But yeah, I can see. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Got to end that on a high note, at least. Also, on a side note, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla doesn't feel like it should be in the Heisei era. It feels more like a Showa era film, but not a great film. I like Space Godzilla in concept, but want him better. Yeah, they're Space Godzilla is a cool concept for sure. Needed to be in a better movie though. Which is kind of a shame. And
Absolutely. And I'm back.
Yeah, that film really did feel like a bit of a Showa era film, which is in a way I kind of appreciate that to a certain degree, because like Godzilla, even though he's still like an anti-hero, he is still in the heroic side of things. But yeah. Oh, by the way, C Animus, since you did watch them recently, but I wonder if you noticed. Do you pretty much recall what that one guy, what his name, Yuri or Yuki, the guy that was like hunting Godzilla at the beginning, shooting at him with bullets,
with the blood coagulant.
Blood coagulant. What are your thoughts about that?
His name was. I heard that. I was like, no.
No, I was like that. I was like, oh God, no, please! Like, they're gonna kill first of all, even in the context of that story, horrible idea. Like, that this thing is a nuclear powered monster. Why would you want to clog him up and potentially cause a meltdown? Well, I mean, the only way
he does really want to kill Godzilla. I think that's the excuse. Is that even when he's driving Mega, oh God, what was his name? The Robo Mole. When he's flying that, he diverts to attack Godzilla. And they're like, no, we need to get Space Godzilla. He's like, no, I want to kill Godzilla. I think that's meant to be the excuse.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, like, mechanically with Godzilla and the Heisei films, it's like we just have to assume that he doesn't operate the same as Shin Godzilla, where his blood is a cooling system. So,
we hope.
Let's bringing Zim on, right? Zimzilla 99 coming right up.
Ooh.
Shalom, shalom, gentlemen.
Hello. We are talking Heisei Godzilla.
Ballin'. Did you guys already go through like all the other Heisei films and you just add Space Godzilla, or did you go?
We're just kind of going, like, just bringing up any point from any of the films, pretty much. We talked quite a bit about Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, because of course we do. We
do. They're just bouncing between them at the minute.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, King Ghidorah's time travel. That's fun. We all love that here.
Yeah. Don't we all?
Yeah.
Very special film.
Because, like, at first, I remember when I was younger, I assumed that at first I assumed that they actually did erase Godzilla from history, and then somehow Godzilla came back from history, and then I was like, oh, wait a second. It's not that they erased Godzilla from history, it's that it's a closed loop, so they ultimately still create Godzilla regardless of what happens. But then I realized it's technically a closed loop, but it happens across several different universes, and that's how you get the time travel to work somewhat well. Somewhat, yeah. There's still problems.
Somewhat. That's
you got the original Godzilla who died, and then the Godzilla who came back in '84 was the Godzilla that was created when they moved the dinosaur, and the dinosaur they moved wasn't actually the original Godzilla. It was just a different. There was another dinosaur on another island that just happened to also be nuked, but then the second dinosaur turned into the second Godzilla, which turned up in '84, and then you start thinking about Ghidorah and
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the problem with it is that with the first timeline, it's implied that obviously the first Godzilla is the 54 one. The 54 one dies. The 84 one shows up, so then we don't know exactly how that one shows up, but we learn later on that once the dinosaurs move, that's where you get the 84 Godzilla becoming a thing in the first place. And it's only the sub that goes down to go look for Godzilla that we end up having a supercharged Godzilla. But then they have to go back to the future, which is a different timeline to ask to that is formed from this new Godzilla being even more powerful to create Mecha King Ghidorah, who comes back to the other timeline to then seal away Godzilla. But then we don't know what happens to the other timeline where they brought Mecha King Ghidorah from, because Emmy says she's going to her old timeline, which is the first timeline, and not the other branch off ones that they made.
oh, I've just thought of something.
Yeah.
Oh boy, what?
So, Zimzilla, I don't know if you, don't know when you started listening.
I just started listening.
Oh, I've come up with a theory as to why. Oh God, I've forgotten her name again.
Emmy.
Future girl, Emmy.
Yeah.
I've come up with a theory why she's terminally stupid. She's well, I'm just going on the theory that she's massively inbred, based on the fact that her great great grandfather wants to hit that, and she then says to him like, "Yeah, I really like being here because of you." So I'm just assuming that her entire family tree is like inbred, which is why she's so stupid in this film.
Oh no.
I'm now because the only evidence we have for Japan being prosperous is her question mark, because if they don't think the future ones, the other two Futurians, the two English guys, I don't think they say anything about like the success of Japan. I can't remember now.
They
There's
only
so much
the only
stupid
thing they
going on.
allude to is the fact that they say Godzilla's going to destroy Japan, and then after they get revealed, they're going to say that Japan actually will be destroyed. But they believe, because like they're essentially like maniacs, that by taking the time machine, when they go back in time, they're going to change their future instead of changing the future of a new timeline.
This is why it's so complicated.
This is why
The
you have
only
time
evidence
travel kits.
the only evidence we really have for Japan being this super successful superpower is inbred girl just coming up with this story about Japan owning the planet. And it's like, is that an actual thing, or is that her just coming up with a story in her head about how wonderful Japan is,
Yeah.
just to encourage people? Is it entirely in her head?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
is the actual timeline of Japan being destroyed by Godzilla the actual timeline?
Yeah, like I mean, you could like it's a good theory that she's pretty much like inbred. The problem is that the film doesn't. It doesn't even remotely. Yeah, the thing is that the film just doesn't even remotely hint at it. So, or is even
No,
aware.
this is entirely my theory to try and make this shit work.
Right.
Yeah. Because like here's the
Trying to
thing,
make-
even if we say that Emmy also isn't telling the truth and that Japan doesn't become that strong, then the timeline where they find dead King Ghidorah would still have to be a different timeline, because that timeline does have Godzilla destroy Japan, but also there couldn't be a King Ghidorah in the Futurians timeline because King Ghidorah hadn't been created yet, or at least that King Ghidorah hadn't been created yet.
Yeah, like I said, there's holes.
There's
I'm pretty sure this. Oh, I need to look at it now. Right, I'm loading the film up. I'm gonna have a look because I know they say oh, Godzilla's gone now. Ghidorah has I can't remember if they said
Yeah,
Ghidorah is
Godzilla-
in his place.
Well, yeah, they say Godzilla has vanished and King Ghidorah has taken his place.
There's
Wow.
just so many holes in that film that's like I feel like there's so many holes in like how the time travel logistics or timeline logistics. Yeah,
And then here's the other thing too. The other problem is that if King Ghidorah was
At the same time,
debated, it was what's it called? Since King Ghidorah was mutated in the like 40s/50s, that technically means King Ghidorah was trouncing about on Earth for like a long time before he even technically activated in the modern day.
that's the thing. That's kind of the thing. It's like the film doesn't even like.
Actually,
just
yeah.
like-
Wait a second. How is it that they know King Ghidorah exists now?
Yeah, and how do they keep like? And also, if this is like a new time, okay, so
Whoa.
God.
Oh, because here's the other problem too, is that when you think about it, hypothetically, let's just say everything's a closed loop. So technically, King Ghidorah was always he was always mutated on Lagos Island, meaning that either King Ghidorah was under like water for so long and just never activated until the Futurians woke him up to do so and found that he was still there, or that no one ever went to Lagos Island and realized King Ghidorah was on that island. Because if we're saying that this is a closed loop, the King Ghidorah was always there. The Futurians were always going to go back in time, and the events that happened in the 50s were never tampered with by the Futurians then, so that technically everything works fine, but still you have problems.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it doesn't explain why Mecha King Ghidorah didn't come earlier to stop Godzilla until that one moment.
Yeah.
And the thing is that also you could still have that happen, but not have to worry about like you just need like a little bit of exposition to explain why like time travel comes back at only certain points, like something like whatever energy that powers the time machines, if there's too much of it in a certain point, it messes with the space-time continuum, so you have to like judge it out by certain periods. So if there's too much time travel activity, you blah blah blah, stuff like that. Like there's stuff you could say to justify it in universe. It's still going to be exposition and people may not like it, but at least like it makes sense.
Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna read some comments a bit here.
You know,
I will say this: any time travel story is going to have holes. Doesn't matter if it's DBZ, God of War 2, or Marvel. It's going to happen. It just depends on how much those holes distract from the film. Unfortunately, for Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the time travel does distract. I'm pretty forgiving of time travel stories. Cell Saga, favorite saga. I like Endgame, flaws and all, but I can't ignore them here. Well, yeah, and it's also just it's also the matter of like how the thing is like a time travel story. It is definitely probably one of the hardest stories to tell without where you could run into some logical problems, pretty much some plot holes. It's just, but there are ways, but it can be done to like just have like the most minimal of holes in your plot as possible. I mean, like for example, like T1 and T2, pretty much. And obviously just those two because we're pretty much not even going to try to touch all the rest because it's just kind of downhill from there. But like you can definitely find some holes in the plot of T1 and T2. It's just a matter of not only is there like great stories being told involving the characters and all that, but even then, the time travel logistics in those films, those first two films at least, they're very straightforward, and it's not even like it's like a very small. It's like the story is flawed in general. The time travel is simply a small aspect of it. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like there is some flaws there, but the time travel isn't like a huge part of the story in those two films. It's only once you pretty much like try to keep going even further, try to make more films after T2, and you even try to explain the time travel logistics in those films as you try to justify making these films, that's where you start running into problems.
I think it's like one of those things where like you have to have very strict rules as to how your time travel works. Like
Yeah.
we know essentially the fact that in the case of the first Terminator, we could, if we assume that this is the first time that time travel was ever used, then if John Connor is never born, then we could believe to some degree that maybe it does, like there is only one strict timeline, and anything that happens in the past will affect that future, and the future ultimately is erased, and they can't go back to that future, and then whatever plays out in the present is where they're gonna have to stay for the rest of their lives, because we never see anyone between T1 and T2 go back to the future. And the same thing could be applied to Terminator 2, where because it could be implied that because of the events of T1, John Connor of the future knows sort of what happens in the events of T1 because like whatever his mother told him, and then that's why you have T2 take place, and then the events of T2 retroactively change what happens in the future. We don't know whatever happens in the future post T2, but we could assume that whatever retroactively changes T1's future to be T2's future occurs. Like that's like one way you can rationalize it.
Yeah. It's to kind of like bring up the whole thing about because I also like noticed there's going to be a point in my upcoming video of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah where I will be also like bringing in talk about Avengers Endgame at least a little bit, like obviously not going into extensive detail about the time travel because it's not really because the video is not about Endgame, but just kind of like go into it a little bit. It kind of about how Endgame kind of has like a similar, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah and Endgame. They're kind of run into like almost have like a similar thing going on in terms of like those movies being about time travel. The time travel is like a major part of the plot in both those films, but it's like so utterly like convoluted to where they just like it almost like they just implode on themselves like at several points, even when they try to get like specific payoffs, in order for the story to progress. The only reason why I could argue that Endgame is not quite as big of an offender as Godzilla versus King Ghidorah is mainly because it does mainly have to do with the fact that Endgame is sort of like the conclusion of of like certain character stories like Tony Stark's or Black Widow's or Captain America's. Although Captain America's end, pretty much is kind of one of the probably the last nail in the coffin in terms of how the time travel is completely fucked in that movie.
Yeah.
But Tony Stark and Black Widow's deaths, it's like the road getting to them. It's is very flawed. At least in that particular movie. But it's pretty much like the journey that we followed them, throughout those films that they were in from 2008 to 2019. That is kind of like allows people to kind of forgive that movie. Why it is kind of logical to even give that film even just a modicum of a pass.
Yeah.
The emotionality of the story overrides the sense of the story, if it were.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
Which does kind of happen in real life. People do stupid things, like completely illogical things, because of an emotionality that has overridden them.
Yeah, well, the thing, well, in the case of Endgame, it's like the journey that the characters were kind of on, since we kind of followed them, and and how well executed so that those journeys were, like like Iron Man. That's kind of why people are willing to forgive the flaws of the time travel in Endgame, or pretty much not even think about the logistics of the time heist or the mechanics of time travel.
There is an actual. They do have an out in the story. But it's gone over so quickly that a lot of people don't seem to remember it. When Tony turns up at the Avengers HQ, he says, "I've cracked time travel. Here's my little device thing. It basically gives us time coordinates so we can jump backwards and forwards through time. And it's essentially him saying, with this device, can get us from A to B and back to A again, so we don't end up at C and D and E.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you have time travel issues, like they go back in time, they take the time stone from the ancient one and then go to the future. It's like, wait, hold on a minute. But Doctor Strange needs the time stone for so. No. They've gone back to their timeline. The timeline that's been created is now carrying on. They've created another timeline, but they've gone back to theirs because of their devices. So that's the sort of thing that solves that problem. Unfortunately, you've then got the Captain America at the end of the film bit, which then means there is another timeline, and then it gets a bit more complicated.
Yeah, that's when it all just kind of just goes okay. So right. The question is, how many time travel stories besides T1 and T2 do you guys actually like, despite the flaws or holes?
Back to the Future. Like I like all the Back to the Future movies. So Back to the Future, the T1, T2, Endgame. I'm not as big a fan of, but it's not like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I pretty much like Endgame, but at least personally, but it's really hard for me to kind of ignore the flaws in that film. Over time, I would definitely say Infinity War is the far superior Avengers film. If you were to ask me, as far as other time travel stories go, the Back to the Future trilogy as well. I mean, that one's pretty solid.
Oh, I was thinking, what time travel films have I watched? It's like The Time Machine.
Mm-hmm.
The original one was good, like that. I really liked the newer one they did, but I don't think many people saw it though. I do use clips of it in my videos because there's a bit where, oh God, what's his name? He voices Scar in The Lion King.
Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons. He plays one of the Morlocks, and he's having a conversation with the main character, and he says, "Your mind is plagued with the one question all scientists fear: what is?" And then later on, the main character replies with, "You've forgotten something. What if?" And those two lines I use a lot because there's a lot of people like to defend films with the what ifs of a film, where I like to look at the what is. So I play those clips a lot. That film has spoilers for The Time Machine, the newer one, if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
There's basically the whole reason he made the time machine is because his girlfriend gets killed, and he makes the time machine to go back and save her. But every time he does, she keeps dying. So then he goes into the future, and then the plot from the original film kicks in. But when he gets to Jeremy Irons, Jeremy Irons basically explains to the scientist guy, he's like, "Yeah, so you've been doing this over and over again, trying to save your girlfriend," and then he shows him a vision because he's psychic. Of course he is. And it shows the girlfriend alive and the scientist with all the time machine drawings, and then he just drops the drawings and goes to his girlfriend. He's like, "Yeah, the reason you can't save your girlfriend is because your girlfriend is the reason you made the time machine. If your girlfriend was alive, you'd never make the time machine, so you'd never save her, so she'd always be dead. So yeah." And that's a fixed loop type thing. Like, you can't make the time machine and save her.
But also, like that revelation is what's like emotionally resonant in the film as well. So
Yeah, it's like a
in
big
a way,
gut punch.
you have to in a way ensure that the mechanics of your time travel play like a key role in the story, because otherwise it's not gonna work as well.
Yeah.
That's
Wait, can we confirm if the versions of the Heisei era are the Japanese dub or not?
I think that like canonically you're just gonna like the Japanese films just go by what the Japanese like versions of the films are. So I would say like whatever subs are is gonna be the most accurate version of those events. Same thing as like how If you're gonna ask like, the Showa timeline, whether the events of Gigantus, King of the Monsters, or King Kong versus Godzilla are the canonical versions, or is it 54, 55, and 62? There's just gonna be go by the Japanese versions of those films. Because
Yeah.
like
And also,
especially with like the like first 3 Godzilla films are so different in terms of like context and a lot of scenes. So you
Yeah,
really
and
have
over
to-
time,
there's also the thing I brought up earlier with Mechagodzilla 2. I don't know why they did it, because I didn't actually mention this before. The start of Mechagodzilla 2 has a voiceover, so there's no actor talking with their mouth on screen, so they have to line it up or anything. It's
Mhm.
literally just a voiceover. And for some reason, if you watch the sub, it says G-Force was founded in '92 in an effort to stop Godzilla. And after that, they started developing more stuff to fight him, eventually getting to Mechagodzilla. But in the dub, for some reason, they say in 1992 they started making Mechagodzilla,
Mm.
and
yeah,
that's a massive problem with the plot, because then it's saying that the spaceship landed in '92, Mechagodzilla was killed in '92, and then Mothra versus Godzilla happened, and then Mechagodzilla 2. Oh, am I getting? No, yeah. King Ghidorah, Mothra, Mechagodzilla 2, those all happened in the same year,
Yeah.
yeah, that
which doesn't
would.
make any sense.
I guess well the only thing like the one reason why like I will justify what occurred like the talk about Japan being so powerful in the future is because it was tied back to Japan's economic growth in the 90s and how there were like ideas that Japan would become like a major superpower around that time. So essentially going off of the idea that Japan was able to create the Super X in 84, perfected with the Super X like years later. And then there's also alien tech. So the massive Japanese economy, plus the fact that they already have experience with machines of this nature, I don't consider it too much of a stretch that um they were able to create Mechagodzilla in such short a time. And then it's consistent, at least in universe, because they don't make a big fuss about Mogera being harder to develop compared to Mechagodzilla. So it's not like they go from being able to develop super weapons really easily to then having trouble with Mogera, for example, or like the Super X3 later on in Destroya. So at least like that's something I could consider to be consistent. Although it is crazy to think that like those 3 films happened so close to one another.
Yeah, like I said, the dub is definitely ruins all that.
Mhm.
Oh, actually, have you guys looked into the dub v sub version of King Kong versus Godzilla?
Yeah, because I have the Criterion collection, so I can look at both of them.
Yeah.
I've watched.
That is-
I have definitely have a lot of familiarities with the American cut, but most recently I have watched the Japanese version. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the differences between those two are awful.
It's
Like completely the
yeah.
bit that really there was bits all the way through it that were making me go, hang on, this doesn't. And the two bits that made me stop watching the American cut and start watching the Japanese cut was the main character question mark he drives to go save his girlfriend from the train that Godzilla's attacking.
Mm-hmm.
And when he drives there, some guy walks up and says, "Go away, Godzilla's coming," and then he just drives off. And then just so happens to run into not actually run into his girl, meet his girlfriend by a river somewhere. He just
Yeah.
happens to meet her. I was like, wait, how did that happen? And then literally the next scene, a guy who keeps on turning up in all these films, same actor, he walks into a room and starts talking about, yeah, we're going to use nuclear bombs. Yeah, we're definitely going to use nuclear bombs,
Oh,
aren't we?
Hakurata.
Excellency. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Serizawa's actor.
He said, we're definitely going to use nuclear bombs, aren't we, Excellency? And it just turns to a bloke on the other side of the table, and it's like, wait, what? No, hang on. So I stopped the film and started playing the Japanese cut.
Mm-hmm.
When the guy drives up and that bloke walks up to his car, that guy says, there are people down by the river still. So
Yeah,
that's how the guy knows to drive down to the river. And then in the next scene, when the general walks in, the general is saying, "We will do everything in our power to try and stop Godzilla, even nukes." And when he says that, everybody like stops and looks around like, oh. And then he turns around and says, "And what do you think, Prime Minister?"
hmm
So it's like the dub, the American cut, just completely ruins the story and completely it takes away the dread of the nuclear bombs that have been built up over the years and just throws it away for, oh yeah, nukes.
One thing that's also interesting too, and this is for you power scalers who haven't seen this version of the film, King Kong actually needed like several, at least 2 power-ups in order to combat Godzilla, because there's the first confrontation where he walks off because he can't beat Godzilla. They then specifically state that Kong gets stronger from electricity, and it's after he gets drugged after getting knocked off the diet building that they say that he should be powerful enough to fight against Godzilla. And then you have the fight at Mount Fuji where Godzilla still beats King Kong, and then he gets the power up from the thunderstorm. So Kong needed 2 Deus Ex Machinas in order, well, 1 Deus Ex Machina and 1 conveniently retconned weakness for Godzilla in order to win.
Oh, and that's a point. Did either of you see the conversation between? I don't know the guy's. He's popped up a lot recently on my Twitter and on my videos. Someone who he's making a lot of comments, and he's usually quite enthusiastic about discussing this stuff. But it was him and Omniviewer replied to a tweet I made about, does anybody actually remember what happened in GXK?
Which one are you thinking? I'm gonna go through your tweets now that you mentioned that.
It was a few days ago now.
2 days ago. Okay.
But I popped onto my Twitter and I had like 20 plus notifications. I was like, what the and I looked on it and it was Omniviewer and this guy going back and forth about continuity issues. And Omniviewer's one was, well, in Godzilla, Godzilla is not affected by electricity. If anything, it just annoys him. But then in King Kong versus Godzilla, he's then hurt by it, and then in the later film, he's just woken up by it. That's a massive inconsistency, isn't it? And the other guy was then saying, "Yes, it is, and we need to acknowledge that." And it was really weird that Omniviewer. I mean, even the guy said, "Omniviewer, why are you like accepting this? You're usually someone who points out this stuff. Why are you being so blasé about the fact that there's these massive problems?" But then that's Omniviewer's recently gone on this whole tangent of allow silly stuff. It's kind of and it's a thing to do. To be fair, there's the whole thing with Pinkzilla. People got quite irate about that. But there's a difference between silly, fun films and, well, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is an incredibly silly film,
Yeah,
but it makes sense. You then have silly
it makes
films.
sense despite all the odds, pretty much.
Absolutely. Despite all the odds, it makes sense.
It makes sense in its own world.
and you go, oh, yeah. But and all the characters are in character, all that sort of thing. It all makes sense.
Yeah,
So
it's
then when
called
you get something like,
consistency.
yeah, when you get to Godzilla X Con and stuff like GVK, again, we're going to disagree on that. Character stuff is all over the place, plot is all over the place. But and then unfortunately, Omniviewer still seems to be sticking to his guns of, it's silly, don't like have a go at it. He said you can't, and I have personally seen this because I'm pretty sure he responded to one of my videos without actually responding to me. He made a video talking about the themes of Godzilla versus Kong, and when he did it at the time, he made it like, yes, this is definitely the themes. And then years later, he's gone, you can get themes out of it if you really try.
But it's like you can get themes out of something if you do like a reading of the text, but the question then becomes what value is apps like actually gained from doing a read on some of the films when the actual internal mechanisms that make the film don't really hold up as well. Like, again,
Yeah.
I can acknowledge like the cultural significance for certain plot points in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I find those interesting, but I will wholeheartedly say that like the themes that would be expressed in the film are lessened because of the choices made that don't necessarily allow the film to hold up as well as I want it to.
Yeah, it's the TLJ thing all over
Mhm.
again.
Exactly.
That film is going to be the actual like benchmark for here's a theme, we're going to do it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So nobody cares about evolved being pink. It's the weird proportions. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like people don't really like. I would say that I'd say the pink aspect was probably like the least of people's problems with evolved Goji's design. It's like, in fact, that's even the least of my problems with that design. And like I kind of have like gotten a little bit used to it, but it really the only thing that does throw me off about that design is like just how thin he is, like at the stomach waist area. It's just like it just looks off.
I mean,
I
you could
think I've
have
said it.
slimmed down Godzilla without like making him like a. I was gonna say Doberman, but that's not the right dog breed. It's like a.
Boxer?
It's a maybe. Maybe. Let me check that actually.
Boxers have bizarrely large chests.
I think it is a boxer.
Yeah, he pretty much kind of looks anorexic, pretty much. Just
Yes, that's a good word for it.
No, not a boxer. I think it's a D sounding dog breed.
I think watching Omniviewers themes on GVK definitely enhanced my enjoyment of a film that I already liked, despite me seeing some of the issues.
Yeah, it's similar to like a greyhound, but it's not a greyhound. It's something that's like got even like wonkier proportions than a greyhound.
Wow, that is wonky.
I would say the other
Yeah.
thing that kind of would throw me off about the American cut of King Kong versus Godzilla, yeah, I mean obviously all the stuff that's like cut out that gives it like that substance that the Japanese version that can be found in the Japanese cut. But the other thing is obviously it's just me personally, perhaps maybe someone may not be thrown off by it, but yeah, like it's weird that like recently watching the Japanese cut, it's like Ishiro Akira Fukube's soundtrack for that movie is pretty good. Why did they have to like replace it with recyclings of the Creature from the Black Lagoon soundtrack? Like when, like guys,
They
I
did
know
some
you're using
weird stuff for that film.
you're using the soundtrack for Creature from the Black Lagoon. Don't fucking lie to me. I know.
It's like one of those things where it's like you can't really change it because obviously the show era ended years ago. But like I do miss the Ifukube tracks in the American version. Although there is something quintessentially American about King Kong and Godzilla fighting, and you're hearing the Creature from the Black Lagoon soundtrack in there.
I mean, like when he's shoving the tree down his throat. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
What's also super funny to me is that the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla, I had when I was first collecting the DVDs, I at a store in the city close to me, they had some Godzilla DVDs and Godzilla figures there, and it was like the first time I heard about King Kong versus Godzilla, and it was a specifically Japanese DVD. So like it played on like US DVD players just fine, but like it was all in Japanese, but it was the American cut with mostly Japanese, and then all the English actors were speaking in English. And I was like, that's interesting, but it was still the Japanese cut, which was weird. And I didn't find out about the actual Japanese cut until like I actually saw it via the Criterion set.
yeah. So yeah, Zim, does anything? So how would you rank the Heisei Godzilla films? Just like what your overall ranking of them?
I know I'm also doing I've been writing outside of one script that's going to be coming out next week. I have been writing the President's Rank the Godzilla films, but those aren't necessarily my opinions totally, but I would probably say like I'd put Biolante would probably be my favorite out of all of them. I'd be like low S, high A tier. 84 I'd probably put low A, high B tier. C tier would probably go to Mechagodzilla, to Mothra. Destroyer I think would probably go high, really low A, super high B. And then King Ghidorah, unfortunately, even though I really like the film, would probably go low C, maybe D, just based on like the issues with the time travel. So
What about Space Godzilla?
Space Godzilla would probably go like mid C, probably like maybe on the higher end compared to some of the other films.
Huh.
And like for context, for anyone's like, why is he putting them so low in C? C literally just means average. Like, so I think like they're average films, but like not necessarily bad.
So, I mean, I would say I could definitely say that Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, like for all the problems that I do have with that film, and there's a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
It is a. I mean, I will say it's kind of a. I would rather for a movie with as many holes as it does. I definitely would rather watch it over most modern MCU movies these days, or stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I'd rather watch any of the Godzilla films over like any of the entries of the Godzilla series I don't like as much. I'd rather watch them than like bad entries of other things. Like I'd rather watch 98 more than The Last Jedi any day.
I'd rather watch Godzilla versus King Ghidorah over you could an argument could potentially be made that actually no Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, for all as many flaws, it does not have as many holes in it as like what we typically see these days, like your average like Multiverse of Madness or The Flash, where they just like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you got Multiverse of Madness, not so much the time travel going on in it as much as The Flash, but they both deal with the multiverse. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah doesn't even deal with the multiverse, so at least they didn't. At least at that time, they weren't that ambitious enough to completely just do all kinds of crazy shit. They could now, perhaps, if they wrote it today, but thank God they didn't.
Yeah.
That's the one thing people worried about with the MonsterVerse is just like, are they going to start introducing multiverses of different like Godzillas and Kongs and whatnot? Is it going to be that silly?
Yeah,
and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't. I like to be honest, considering the Rooster Teeth went under, because they had the DC Ruby crossover animated film. I would not be surprised now that with GXK's success, that like they might pivot and be like, hey, let's use the success of the MonsterVerse to try to help the DC projects and have the Godzilla versus Justice League comics adapted into a animated movie.
I will say, like, if they try to do that with the MonsterVerse, bringing the multiverse into it, I will say that's going to be the point where I'll check out. I'm just so done with multiverses. Not that you can't tell a good story with the multiverse, because you can. I mean, they're out there, everything, everywhere, all at once. Oscar-winning film and a fantastic film at that. That deals with the multiverse. But yeah, we just don't have like anywhere near enough like disciplined writers to like be able to just pull this concept off that is like so ultra complex when they can't even get the basics of storytelling right. Like just giving us like even remotely decently written characters or a plot that makes some level of sense beyond, once you just like compartmentalize everything, moving away from the logistics of multiverse and what have you.
I'll say this, there is only one crossover and only one universe that like I would excuse being allowed into the MonsterVerse, and that is Pacific Rim. Simple as that. That would be the only universe I would allow. Maybe you can do a crossover, only because then maybe we could get Guillermo del Toro to do a Godzilla movie,
Oh my
AI.
god.
Like
Yes.
That
that
could
plus
work.
like if it also like if it this is bad, but it's like if it retcons Mako's death, so like the multiverse floops save her life, and we get Del Toro using Mako as like a main character in a movie.
Oh yeah,
with,
just
like, Godzilla.
completely delete Uprising. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
And then
like,
we take off from, like I said, the first film. It's been a few years, aliens haven't been around, and then suddenly, oh no, it's a new portal. What's going to come out of here? And then suddenly, like Kong comes through accidentally or something.
yeah, like literally, I would be completely fine too with like total universal like convergence, like all like the Pacific Rim universe just floops into the Monsterverse, and now you have the Pan Pacific Defense Force as a faction. I would totally be fine with that because honestly, the Pan Pacific Defense Force is far more effective and actually cares about people more than Monarch ever has.
Well,
That's always been
Monarch,
the
Monarch circa GVK, perhaps.
yeah. That was all. I don't know if you've seen my he's not here to save you video.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yep.
Yeah. I suppose that covers Godzilla, not Monarch. Monarch aren't exactly the same thing.
Well, it's like one of those things because in GXK, they're like, if Godzilla shows up, we're just gonna have to run like hell. It's like that's your plan. You guys are shedding these animals and like these creatures, and your best
No
defense
orca.
if Godzilla decides to like go berserk for one reason or another, just run. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, I hate that. I hated
Apex's
that
only
line.
mistake is that they built Mechagodzilla around King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that was really it. Like honestly, like the best way that they could kind of do like another, if they were to do another GXK whatever Kong Godzilla crossover there, at this point, why not just bring Mechanic Kong in, or hell, like maybe bring like Jet Jaguar in or something, like as like a Gypsy Danger type thing that
I mean,
can
honestly,
just
if they bring over Pacific Rim, then that's a perfect excuse to have Jet Jaguar be a Jaeger.
yeah. I mean, like yeah, like they could just even just do either of those pretty much, like just. And just have it be like, well, yeah, Walter Simmons was kind of stupid, and like just maybe a bit paranoid about the whole Titan thing, and that's why using a Ghidorah skull just like caused Godzilla to go berserk in the overall, like it just let's just move away from that. Don't worry, folks, we're making mechas. We're not doing that. We're just doing mechas. We can even just. We're using AI, not Skynet AI or Ultron AI, but an AI that is that can just that's actually not too bad. That's how you bring Jet Jaguar to it, and like I don't know if you guys have seen like that Operation Jet Jaguar like shorts from
Yeah.
G-Fest last year.
Yeah.
That's honestly like probably how they could bring Jet Jaguar into the Monsterverse. Is like don't do this. You can pretty much just not even attempt to do the size shifting thing, which is like always the thing that throws people off about him. Because other than that, like a giant robot, very effective, or can be.
Yeah, exactly. But
I like the idea of having a couple of mechs like Mechanicon and Jet Jaguar. They make two different companies or whatever make two different mechs, and they make them with AIs, and they make them very different with different mentalities or whatever. So Mechanicon is more effective at first, and the Jet Jaguar isn't. Maybe it gets his ass handed to it, or maybe it's too concerned trying to protect people rather than defeat a Titan. And then later on, the AI in Mechanicon goes nuts and starts attacking everything inside. It comes up with its own ideas, the usual thing with AI. And then the Jet Jaguar one comes through by doing the things it was doing earlier, but now it's doing it for I don't know, something like yeah, I like the idea of having two that then like one goes bad, one stays good, and then we get maybe a Jet Jaguar Godzilla team up against Mechanicon or something.
Well, Or perhaps even just have it to be like, have the film, we could just have it be like, oh, humanity, like AI like a film can make a case like, because AI is sort of a bit of a controversial thing, but people kind of sort of overlook that perhaps there's like some uses of AI where it's like not all too bad, like if you're working within a budget. Because apparently there's like this movie called Late Night with the Devil with David Dastmalchian. It's like a horror movie that came out, but I heard it's really good. I haven't been able to see it. But apparently there was like a controversial thing about it where there was like certain like text cards that came up that apparently were generated by AI. But the reason why is that the film had like a very low budget and they just like had to find some way around to kind of like, work with that. So they used AI as a result. What I think, as far as like the Mechanicon and Jet Jaguar Monsterverse movie concept, is that we could have like a movie that makes a case for AI. It's just a matter of how you use it. Do you use it? Can you use it responsibly, or or it could just lead to some kind of like there's a way to use it responsibly, and then there's like the way where it's not responsibly. Like heck, honestly, you could give us like a good excuse to just, I don't know, like bring Alan Jonah back or something, where he's the one messing with Mechanicon, perhaps.
Oh no! I just thought you have Mechanicon being full AI, and Jet Jaguar is piloted, and then the Jet Jaguar one fails because the pilot isn't doing so well. They're nervous or something. They get scared, but Mechanicon sticks with it because it's an AI. It doesn't care. And then later on, the AI starts doing its own thing. They're like, "Oh no, we can't stop it! It's doing its own thing." And then the piloted robot with a AI assistance in it defeats Mechanicon.
Yeah, that could definitely work too.
Okay, so here's a comment that says from Christy Madge. Versus King Ghidorah didn't involve a multiverse. Apparently, he was quoting me. Who's gonna tell him? So,
like when he obviously when he means multiverse, he means that it's specifically focusing on the multiverse as a concept. Technically, like timelines and multiple universes in fiction are usually distinguished as two different things. So there's that. But if you want to say different timelines means different universes, sure. But like even then, King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah isn't really like about the multiverse being in jeopardy. You're talking about the nature of the multiverse.
Yeah, it's only really Marvel that's mixed those twos up recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I say like involving the multiverse, what I mean is like the concept of like bringing like other versions up. When we say bringing other versions of Godzilla or Kong, we're talking about like literally just plucking them from other universes and putting them in another universe. That's
like most multiverse stories.
I said versus King Ghidorah didn't involve the multiverse in that particular context because Doctor Strange 2 had Doctor Strange plucked into an alternate universe where there was like an alternate version of Avengers. And that movie is a colossal piece of shit that is way bigger than Ghidorah could ever hope to be.
But unfortunately, I do have to head out because I have not eaten anything all day, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna bounce. But if the stream is still going after I finish eating, I may just swing back on, gentlemen.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on, Sea Monster, and my hats off to you, Sea Animus.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's nice chatting to you.
As always. Have a good one. I was going to say have a good night, gentlemen, but it's only 6 where I am. Have a good one, gentlemen.
It's 10 to 12 here.
Oh, jeez, man. Get some sleep.
I will eventually.
Well, yeah. But if it's still going, I'll pop on a little bit again.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
you
just
yeah.
All right. So now there's 2 again. All right. So here's a comment that says, "When it comes to kaiju, it's a slippery slope of how much is worth fighting the kaiju. I think humanity has the right to defend themselves, but I personally don't see war with Godzilla as worth it." So yeah, like that's kind of I think that's kind of the thing about like with the MonsterVerse, at least like initially, it's just like what people kind of don't seem to see. like when people sort of like critique Godzilla's like actions, in the MonsterVerse from 2014 to 2019, like there is definitely like collateral damage, but when he's like fighting the monsters and all that, but really it just like the films definitely make it clear that it's like killing him just won't really resolve anything either because you have other monsters as well.
Yeah,
Or
it's the 2014 and Killing the Monsters, and to an extent, Kong Skull Island show that the big bad monsters that people think are the big bad monsters are actually doing a job. They're there to sort stuff out, and when people mess with that, things go wrong, and usually something worse comes along. Then you have to bring back the thing that you got rid of.
yeah, and
That's
Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters like take a step further by showing like by pretty much like kind of making it clear that it's like what if you pretty much do kill like these titans that are meant to keep the peace, if you will, and something worse than them shows up, but you yourself aren't the ones who are going to be able to help to stop that worst thing because you killed the thing that would kill that other thing. Like
I
with the
always find
Oxygen
that I always
Destroyer.
find that very interesting with these films when they can give you a reason why one monster can be downed but the other one can't. It's like when they staple that in and make that a thing. It's like, oh, that's interesting, because then it stuff like that happens in real life. You do certain things that should work and solve a problem, but then another problem comes along. You kind of um need to sort that out. Oh my god, I'm getting tired.
Oh,
I think I'll be needing to go in a second.
okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the Heisei era. Oh, I just wanted to mention some of the funny lines from Space Godzilla. How Space Godzilla is created. You talk about a culmination of the previous films and how Space
Yeah.
Godzilla was potentially meant to be the original end of the era. The fact that you have Mothra's was it Mothra's DNA? Oh, no, Godzilla's DNA on Mothra when Mothra went into space, and Biolante's DNA, which is a mix of Godzilla's. Both of those going into space, falling into a black hole, and then coming out a white hole mixed together to make a new organism. Then something to do with absorbing solar radiation to grow, and then somehow giving that the intelligence enough to know which way to go to get back to Earth. And it's like, what on earth is? And then they end it all saying, and that's our theory.
Anyways, that's just a theory, a meme theory.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
all that. I was like, what? They're literally just coming up with a theory, an excuse to have this monster. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's also not to mention like the fact it's like we're still like in that position of like so Violante still happened in this timeline, even though they just like is that because the Violante stuff like went up into space, by the end of that film. But it's like yeah, that's pretty convenient. It's like all kinds of convenient. By the way, when Mogera was fighting Space Godzilla in space, and you had like those initial pilots that were kind of in there, and I guess the film says that they all died because Mogera like lost one of its thrusters and was just like spiraling out of control, like Darth Vader was in his TIE fighter at the end of A New Hope. How did Mogera like get back? Because it was in an
I was
asteroid
thinking that at the
belt.
time. It's like they're going out of control into space, and like, so they're dead. Then they must be dead because they're not getting back if they're out of control in space, because you don't stop in space.
Yeah, and they're not getting Mogera back either. So because Mogera's up there too.
Make another one again. So I only recently watched these films. I must have some of these bits go past so fast. Granted, I
Yeah.
just thought of the other line I was thinking of. I think it's NASA brings a video to the Japanese government showing their space station getting annihilated by a bunch of crystal spikes.
Yeah.
And This one isn't a dub v sub issue because it's an American saying the line, so it's exactly what they wanted him to say. And he says, "We don't know what it is. We're assuming it's a giant monster."
Oh, which first of all, like, do you have like a like? Did they have like a window there to look out there? Because well, even that space, like, was this like before Space Godzilla went through the asteroid belt? Because otherwise, how? Because if that's the case, how would they even know what it is?
I'd have to rewatch the film to get the order right. But the fact that they had no idea about Space Godzilla at the time would suggest this happened before he arrived, which is just. But then their logistics in space are so bizarre. Like they have the space station thing first, yeah. Then Mogera goes out to fight Space Godzilla in the asteroid belt.
Yeah.
The nearest one is past Mars.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know how they worked that one out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they would. Yeah, there could be a line in there that they built into the Mogera, but I mean, it's been fairly recent for me, but I genuinely just do not recall them being able to, reference that, saying that they brought it back, or they built another one. I don't even know. It could have gone fast, but even then.
Yeah, there was a few issues with that film, and the one with Biollante that I wanted to bring up. The end of the film, because they do the whole thing of we've got anti-nuclear bacteria that we can use to clean up nuclear waste and whatnot. So this is something we should make and do, which they do. And then at the end of the film, it's like, great, we've now basically worked out how to make it. We should make more of it. And they went, no, we're not making it. It's too much of a step for science or some rubbish. Then the scientist gets shot in front of everybody, including soldiers. One of the characters then just jumps in the jeep and drives after the guy who shot him. There's a fight scene. That guy the guy who shot the scientist gets killed. That guy then meets up with, I can't remember which character it was, his girlfriend. I'm gonna say, meets up with his girlfriend. They're like, "Oh, haha, you look terrible." "Oh yeah, it's fine." I think she says he looks like James Bond. He then says, "How's the doctor?" And they just look at each other and bow their heads. Then I think Godzilla pops up, and then they get in the car and they're like, "Do you want to bang?" "Yeah, sure." And that's the end of the film. It's like the scientist just got shot. I've killed the guy who shot him. Um, how's the doctor? "Oh, he's dead." "Oh well." Bed, bed, bed. It's such an odd way to end the film. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, the film just kind of ends like super fast. It's like, well, we're just going through all that, got it, good. And yeah, like I will say, like that bioterrorist like subplot, it's like I'm not gonna lie. By the time that guy showed up, like it's the film goes on for so long without like acknowledging that subplot that you kind of forget a little bit. It's kind of feels um like if they're stealing like the anti-nuclear bacteria, pretty much. Then yeah, I'm sorry. It's like I'm kind of blanking out some details here, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, the whole anti-nuclear bacteria subplot with all the terrorists and the I think it's like biomass is the American one that's trying to sabotage stuff or steal stuff. Then you got the I can't remember the name of the country, Sarabia or whatever the hell they came up with. That's another country that's getting involved with it, and they get the guy with the AK-47, which he can use like a bloody sniper rifle somehow. He keeps on turning up in scenes, seeing Godzilla and saying, "Damn Godzilla," and that's literally his like 50% of his lines is "Damn Godzilla."
yeah.
That whole subplot again, it's the sort of we've probably said this a lot. The Heisei era has legs in terms of its plot lines and its ideas and whatnot. but the execution isn't quite there. But most
Yeah.
people don't remember those bits because when they were young and saw these films, they were just concentrating on the monster stuff, and the human stuff in between was just sort of connect it together and get it going. It's only when
Yeah.
you look back at it as an adult, you're okay, so there was some ideas here. It just wasn't done very well.
Yeah, Godzilla versus Biollante has like good ideas in terms of like, genetic engineering and bio, and just kind of like medicine with like biological sort of meddling pretty much. But yeah, it's just kind of the way of it's kind of like the way it tries to like convey that theme. Like it's try like have like a bunch of subplots, put thrown in the mixer, and it just kind of it just doesn't feel quite as connected as it probably should be. But even then,
Yeah.
it's still not as bad as like apparently that Japanese mafia subplot in Space Godzilla
Oh
when they
God, I
kidnap
forgot
Miki.
about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, what the fuck was that? What was the point of all that?
Because I was what when because they tried to use ESP to control Godzilla, the machine breaks because the guy was fiddling with the buttons, which immediately
Yeah.
should be a red flag for everybody. Like, you just tried to kill the only ESP person we have. He then says, "Well, the machine's buggered," and then they just believe him. The machine's buggered, and then later on, he turns up with the Yakuza saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to use it to control Godzilla so we can have power." And he said, "But it didn't work?" Question mark. And yeah, then it all goes downhill from there.
Yeah. That's comment. I loved that comment on Godzilla Neo's plant Biolante drawing. Until what? Please tell me. What is this thing? Oh God, the horror. And response is, man got shot. Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of the thing. It's like you got all this crazy stuff happening in that movie in Biolante, but yeah, Space Godzilla. There's like a lot of ideas that the Heisei era tries to tackle in their respective films. It's just that they can't seem to quite juggle them as well. Like with some exceptions for sure. Like Godzilla versus Destroya is certainly like probably the most focused out of all of them because of like it's all about trying to deal with Godzilla's meltdown, and the Destroya subplot ties back into the origins of the Oxygen Destroyer and everything. So
Yeah, the main plot is basically Godzilla is going to die and kill everything, and
yeah.
Destroyer is there as an antagonist of sorts, but he's not necessarily the villain. I don't. Is he the villain?
Well,
Or
well,
is he just
destroy.
an antagonist?
Well, Destroyer. Well, Destroyer would kind of be. It would definitely be a villain. It's just the main threat is. I guess you could say like the main threat is it's both of them being like the threat kind of where it's just that Godzilla is the one that we root for to just defeat Destroyer because even if Godzilla was able his meltdown was like contained, like we'd still Destroyer kind of like being out and about, pretty much is like us is like an aside, more or less. It's like Destroyer like potentially overrunning the planet, doesn't really is like a whole separate issue that is arguably just as bad as Godzilla because both of them could just end all life on the Earth, either which way. So
Yeah, that is actually a point because they show in the film that he splits up into multiple forms at one point to attack Godzilla and then reforms. And then they show Godzilla like smashing one to bits and bits of it go flying around everywhere. And all I'm thinking to myself is, are those going to turn into like their own monsters now? Because surely that should be a thing if they can basically create and like the split and join and do all this sort of stuff. Is what is the limits of that conjoining and splitting? But then it's never brought up. It's never a thing. So they just ignore it.
yeah, and there's a follow up comment there about the Plant Biolante drawing. And that was like right after the Plant Biolante drawing where G Sam deadass thought yes, I should give Biollante human breasts and vagina. That is some weird shit right there. Yeah, that's probably definitely don't want that. No, 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 no. Yeah, it's weird.
And on that note,
Yeah,
I'm going to head to bed because it's now
yeah,
10 past the midnight here.
yeah. I think I'll probably just end the stream here, more or less. So yeah, so Zimzilla pretty much won't be able to come back, in time. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, Zimzilla, and thanks for stopping by, good sir, Mister, my fellow Sea King, Sea Animus.
Thank you yourself, Your Majesty. I look forward to the next one, whenever that may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
So
fun.
yeah. So got anything to plug? Pretty much. Any chilling?
My next video, The Great Wrong, that is Godzilla X Kong Part 2, is basically done. I need to render it and maybe add in a few visuals here or there, but it's done. It's going to be about half an hour long, and it's talking about the characters of the monsters.
Ah, cool.
And despite the title, there is going to be some positive stuff in there. I actually, a little inside bit of info. I moved Shimu's character analysis from like third on the list to the front of the video because I didn't want to put people off by being immediately negative. Because I was originally going to start with Scylla and Tiamat and talk about how badly they were used. And I thought, I should probably ease people into this. So I moved Shimu's one to the front of the video because I describe her as the second best character in the film.
Okay, so Frosty Mudge says, like, wait, you haven't heard the best part, LMAO. Okay, what's the best part before?
Okay, we're waiting. We're waiting.
Yeah, yeah. I think Shimo as a character, in GXK actually could have been, they could have done like a little more with her than they actually did. I mean, you could say that about a lot of things in GXK.
Oh god, yes. But yeah, that video should be coming out 4:00 my time Saturday. I have no idea what time that is. Saturday. Just yeah, keep your subs open for Saturday and it should pop up.
Yeah, cool. And while we wait for this comment here, I guess I'll just plug some of my stuff. This has been this is your host, the Sea Monster, saying that I am pretty much still currently working on my Son of Frankenstein video, which it's taking some time because life and all that, but I do want to. I'm going to try to get it out by the end of April, but if not, then the beginning of May. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is probably going to take even longer. Yeah, and as far as like when I'll stream next, I'm pretty much not entirely sure. I do want to do like a discussion stream on Abigail, the new like movie about the vampire ballerina, pretty much. That's like kind of a takeoff on Dracula's daughter. But I
have not heard of that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's from the filmmakers that did like the new Scream films and Ready or Not. But I don't know when. Yeah. So I can't really give like a definite day on when I'll do a discussion stream for that film until I see it, which is at the earliest convenience that I can. But as far as like anything Godzilla related, yeah, I will feel free to let you know when we'll be streaming again. The fact that, as I said, G. Sam got to work for Toho after creating Boobielante. Oh, so the guy that wanted to give Biollante boobs and vagina got hired by Toho after creating her as like an idea. So that's a rip. Damn.
Weird.
Yeah, that's some Lovecraftian horror type shit right there. Don't even know what to say to that. Other than that's quite the note to end on for the stream of the Heisei Era of Godzilla. So is it pretty much okay for me to use some clippings from the stream for my video? Because this
Oh,
episode.
absolutely. You go for it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, the art for Rulers of Earth, that was all him. Not familiar with that, but I'm sure we'll talk about that another time. But so thanks for stopping by, everybody, including C. Animus here.
No worries, mate.
All right, and
Thanks for
we
having me
will.
on.
Yep, not a problem. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Yep,
Bye.
same here. I am very tired.
All right, have a good night, folks.
Good night.
Some,
Good night.
Sea Kings out, bitches.
Greetings.
Yeah.